Hello, welcome to the Ultimate Gamer. We're your hosts, Rob, Tom, and Nick. Welcome to the show. We are live. Yeah, the Madhouse. Tom is here. Hey, Tom, how you doing? Hopefully well.
I am doing great, and I'm loving this game, mate.
And we're also joined by Nick Pert. Hey, Nick, how you doing?
Hello, I'm also loving this game.
Except unironically.
Scottish 40k action tonight. So,
So if you're just joining us, today we're going to do a TTS game. We're going to try and do some coverage. We've slapdashed this together today, so hopefully it'll work fine. It's very exciting. We're in round 2 of the Scottish TTS League. A bunch of the guys. Tom, you'll know the most about this. Can you tell me who the guys are roughly?
So this is Callum. He plays Among Us, and this is Dave, his opponent.
No, I meant the TTS League generally. How's it been set up and why?
Okay, so basically it's set up by the Scottish WTC Discord, where Innes runs a league every so often. So basically you'll start a league up and you'll just play in that. So we've got 20 people playing in this league at the minute, all just to keep ourselves from being rusty. And the last 2 people to win the league have both been Welsh. So the Scottish are looking to get back some victorious laps on their home turf of their own Discord server.
Okay, well, that makes loads of sense. Welcome to everyone in the chat. Let's know who you root for. So we've got Space Marines, obviously, versus Necrons. That's right, we're late to the party, but very excited to see this happen. So we're going to go through the lists now, so you guys should be able to see this here on the screen. So the first list we're going to look at, so this is being run by Callum. He's got an Iron Hands list, right? So he's got a Primaris Librarian, 2 Tech Marines, and as you can see on this screen, 4 units of Incursor squads. And now the thing I think to point out about this particular list is that Librarian, obviously he's got Psychic Mastery, so he's got +1 to his casting attempts, which is really important, because he's probably going to be wanting to cast Psychic Fortress all day long. Nick, Tom, you got any thoughts on that?
Oh, Psychic Fortress is great. 5+ invulnerable save for everybody, and he's playing Iron Hands, so you get a 6+ DPR on top of that. Plus, you've got -1 damage and all those dreads. They're going to be a massive pain in the arse to shift.
You didn't reveal the dreads yet. It's a secret.
Shut up, Rob. The dreads are the most important bit. Although that said, I want to see what Nikos' opinion is on these Incursors, because we had this discussion on the show, and he didn't like the Incursors. He always one of those infiltrators. So
no, I didn't say I didn't like the Incursors.
I think.
But sticking with if we just stick on the Psychic Fortress thing, I think basically he's got 6 dreadnoughts that Tom's alluded to in the list, but 3 of them are Leviathan, so they've already got a 5+ invulnerable save. So I'm presuming that Librarian is going to babysit the Redemptor dreadnoughts who don't have an invulnerable save.
Correct.
So he's got 2 bunches of 3 dreadnoughts, all with their 5+ invuln, and like Tom said, the 6
Rob,
Iron Hands
Hey,
DPR.
Nikos, can the players hear you, by the way?
They
cannot.
cannot. Don't worry.
Excellent.
Big shout out to Ishik in the chat. He says, "Tom, we love you, Tom. Can you read this, Tom?"
No, I can't.
Oh, okay. Right, now let me talk about the other stuff that's in the list. Obviously, there's Incursors. I want you two in a minute. I'm going to jump to you to tell me what those Incursors are going to do. But the 2 important units here are those 2 Primaris Tech Marines. They can give +1 to hit. Each of them can pick a unit and give them +1 to hit. Pretty certain that those are going to be on those Levy Dreadnoughts because they used to hit on 2s. They now hit on 3s. So those Tech Marines are going to do that. And then also, one of them's obviously been upgraded to a Master of the Forge. So he's healing flat 3 to a vehicle. So again, one of those Leviathans, I'm pretty certain. And also, the other Tech Marine has been given a data spike. So he rolls 2 dice to heal the D3. So effectively, you're probably on average, you're definitely healing 3 from one Tech Marine, probably healing 3 from the other into this army of -1 damage, 5+ invulnerable save, 6+ DPR dreadnoughts. What do you guys think of the Incursors?
Well, I just wanted to make another point on the Primaris Tech Marines. I believe you can also use your stratagem to make the 3rd Redemptor Dreadnought +1 to hit, and you can make one a captain effectively, so you can then make them all 2s to hit, rerolling once. Ooh. So they're very, very consistent with the damage output, as well as being insanely hard to kill.
It's really, really cool. Really cool. I'm really happy that Callum has written a list for me. What do the Incursors do?
And Iron Hands also have a stratagem. I was just looking it up. Machine Empathy. So for 1 CP, he can heal another vehicle. So he could potentially heal 3 vehicles a turn.
Which is useful because there's going to be 3 he wants to heal. Okay. What about those Incursors? Talk to me about what they do.
Well, they're basically Windfiltrator's poor cousin. The reason I love Infiltrators is because you can combo those with a Phobos Captain and Lieutenant with the Auspex, the data comlink, sorry, and they always get their rights of battle and the reroll ones to wound buff. Incursors don't have that, but they're a little bit cheaper to reflect that. But they essentially do the same job. They're advanced deploying units, so they deploy 9 inches away from your opponent's deployment zone in the deployment step, so they can take the board early on, and either screen out other deep striking stuff or just get block in the way. So they're more of a defensive blocking unit that we've talked about before, like in our Space Marine roll show. So they can get on objectives early, block off the opponent early, and stop them sort of getting in your face. So that's kind of the role that they sort of take.
Now, yeah, and I can't wait to see them deployed up against this Necron force. Now, the rest of the army is 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts, 3 Relic Leviathan Dreadnoughts as well. Talk about the loadouts in a minute. The kind of key point to talk about today, especially after we've seen the Death Guard rules previewed, as we saw earlier, -1 damage for an entire army. We're going to see that come into play for both armies today. I think that's really, really important. You're going to see that come in on the Catacomb Command Barge when we get to talking about with the Necrons. But all of these Dreadnoughts are also -1 damage, which is pretty significant. Nick, you got any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, like we said, they're Iron Hands ones, so they've always get the 6 at DPR, and Callum's also got a 5+ in run on all of them as well. The -1 damage just makes them even more resilient than they already are, because obviously they're not an infantry model that has 1 or 2 wounds. You want big damage against these Dreadnoughts to take them down. So I think Dave, the Necron player, he's going to have to really focus fire on these Dreadnoughts, because like we said before, they've also got Tech Marines around to heal them up. So what I think is quite ironic about this matchup is that the Necron player is going to have to treat these Dreadnoughts as Necrons and kill one until it's dead, so Callum can't resurrect it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
And that's usually how you have to play against Necrons. Kill that unit so it can't resurrect.
So it's going to be fun seeing it flip reversed, right? And then the loadouts, obviously, those Relic Levies, they've got those Grav Flux Bombards, yeah? They've got the Hunter Killer Missiles as well, and they've got the Leviathan Siege Claw, so they can go and punch face, they get into combat, and those Grav Flux Bombards are blast. I feel like they're in there specifically to take out Marines, and they're going to be really interesting going into the Immortals. I'd like to try and just pick them off really quickly. They're going to be a bit useless at high AP going into the Lich Guard, who've got that 4-up invulnerable save, but they've got a good strength. So there's some like pretty high-end strength, like which that Toughness 5 Lich Guard, or even the Toughness 5 Immortals are going to be like, oops. So they might smite them quite well. However, they're going to be susceptible when we talk about the Necrons to some of the big stuff. Anyone got any more thoughts on the Dreadnoughts, or should we jump and see the Necron list?
No, I think they're quite self-explanatory. I think he's gone for a similar loadout on all the Dreadnoughts. They're all basically doing the same job. Like the Redemptor Dreadnoughts, I would usually, and have been usually, loading them out with the Gatling cannons, because they get a lot of shots. They're pretty decent strength, but they're only damage 1. Whereas Callum's gone for the Macroplasma Incinerators, which weren't in vogue in 8th edition, I wouldn't say. But now, if Marines are more prominent in the meta, they're a similar job to the Grav Flux Bombard, where they've got a high strength, you can overcharge them, and to go to damage 2 or 3, I can't remember exactly what
damage 3. I
think it's damage 3.
Killing vehicles, then.
Yeah, so they're basically exactly the same as the Grav Flux Bombard, almost identical profile. So yeah, I think again they're in there to murder Marines, and they'll also murder Lich Guard.
Okay, so
Immortals.
Yeah. So the Necron list is Novok. Nick, Novok.
Is it Novok?
It is Novok.
You've got a silent kit. Oh, it's 2 detachments, isn't it?
There's 2 detachments. First detachment is Novok, right?
Yeah. So Novok gives you +1 to charge. So if you're deep striking or just running across the board, you're extra good at charging. And also in the first round of combat, whether that be a heroic intervene or a charge or your charge, you get an extra AP on all your weapons. Necrons have quite a lot of AP on their combat weapons anyway, if they're a specific combat weapon like a scythe or
even
a staff of light.
Swords, yeah.
But this just gives them an extra little pip of AP, so Marines might not even get that 6-up armor save. But I think it also makes like Warriors a little bit more scary, Immortals a tiny bit more scary, and he's also got flayed ones, and it gives them a bit of AP as well.
Which I really crave as well, because we've got a lot of attacks, but the quality just often isn't there.
Well, and so just to fly through the list, the Technomancer, he's obviously got Veil of Darkness, so that's quite important. You can only res a unit and also give reroll charges from that Technomancer as well, or res a model. We had some pre-game chat, pretty certain that that's going to go on the Lich Guard. Tom thinks it's going on the Warriors. We'll see.
I never. Well, I mean, I said that before I knew what most of the list did, so
Okay.
Just too much.
But the other thing to point out, that Catcoon Command March also -1 damage because of, I'm pretty certain because of that Warlord trait Enduring Will. So they're going to, it's only the one unit, but it's quite fun with Death Guard being released today, or some of the rules for Death Guard being released today, that we're seeing that -1 damage in 2 different places here, and we'll see how that generally pans out.
It's almost like it's being spread out across the game. It's really healthy.
Yeah, which is fun. And then here we go. We got next up. The next part is Necrons. For the rest of it, sorry. There's Crypto Thors. There's 9 Flayed Ones. There's 10 Lich Guard. There's 2 units of Canoptic Scarab Swarms, and there is 10 Triac Praetorians as well. So 250 points. So some big hitters. But the biggest hitter of them all, he won't make a noise. He won't even whisper. He's the Silent King. Yeah.
If he's at a party, you don't even know he's there.
You won't even know he's there.
He'll just turn up with his massive scroll full of rules and then just sit there reading them. He's really antisocial. Yeah.
Okay, so lots to play for, and deployment's already begun, so we're probably going to jump over to the game now. Nick, you got any final thoughts before we lose you to the table bossing? Appreciate that so much.
My call for the game is Marines win. I don't think looking at Dave's list that he can necessarily deal with the Dreadnoughts. One thing to note on the Dreadnought list as well, one of the Tech Marines does have the Warlord trait Rites of Battle. So Dreadnoughts are core, so they're going to get OBSEC as well. Yes. Dave's list doesn't have loads of objectives secured unit. He's not taken the Necron Dynasty, which has objectives secured. So I feel like the Marines have this, and one of the reasons why I say Dave wouldn't necessarily be able to deal with the Dreadnoughts that much is because of that -1 to damage rule. Like a lot of the Necron combat, because it's mainly a combat list, a lot of the combat in this Necron army is damage 2 or 3. So if they're going to be fighting the Dreadnoughts, it's going to be actually damage 1 or 2. And with the healing powers that Callum's brought, I'm not sure he's going to be able to take those Dreadnoughts down before those Dreadnoughts murder him. So I think this is going one way. I think it's going the Marines.
Ooh, okay. All right. What's everyone on the Twitch chat think? Big up to yourselves. Thanks for joining us. We're going to jump over to the game now. Just mute the Skype, Nick. That'd be the one. Big love. Okay. We should still be able to hear you, though, if you talk to us on Discord. So here's the game. There we go. This is the matchup. And we've already started to see some deployment here. As you can see, I'm going to just quickly fire through it. Those 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts you can see on the screen right here. They are ready to rock. They're hiding behind this obscuring terrain. Now, just quickly, I guess we should talk about the terrain and the mission. The terrain layout is obviously from the WTC pack. So if you go on the WTC website, type in WTC 40k and terrain, this is the pack. It's a very dense board. And hopefully, I'm really hoping, Tom, that we start to see WTC terrain pack used standard pretty much everywhere, because then it becomes common. You got any thoughts on that?
I just like to be able to use my terrain as much as I can. Plus, it gives you the opportunity to practice on like similar terrain to what you're going to be doing anyway, right? We saw the value of being able to practice on dense boards when dense boards popped up in 2018, and how USA managed to take that event specifically because of that dense board practice. In my opinion, I think that was a massive factor. What I am looking to see here, though, is I don't think it's necessarily too easy to hide behind them, because a lot of the time on these boards, you're able to pivot around and move, and you can hide little odds and ends, but if you're trying to hide something like the Silent King or a big block of Lich Guard or something like that, often it can be quite tricky, especially with that movement 5.
You can't even obscure the Silent King, right? Isn't he 18 wounds?
You can't, exactly. Yeah, so it doesn't even matter about the terrain at that point. That said, you do have to target his triarchal menhirs first. So what these are is they are 2 models that you have to target. Well, any wounds that go onto Silent King have to go onto these menhirs first, and they are toughness 7 models with a 3-up save again, so they're still very, very difficult to remove, and then you can start chipping away at the Silent King's 16 wounds. That said, if you do manage to kill the Silent King, then you're going to be having some fun, because he blows up on a 4+, 2d6 inches, d6 mortal wounds. It's hilarious.
It's a lot, but there's a lot of output coming from the Marine Force, but in a mid-board style fashion. And these fire lanes are going to be very important. If we can see, we've started to see how that has started to look. Now, obviously, primary missions here, as you can see, the objectives on the board available. We're playing surround. We're playing
surround them. So surround them is a secondary objective that comes from one of the missions in the match play pack. And what it is effectively, if you control both of your objectives and one of your opponents at your command phase, you get 4 points. And if you control all four, then you get 8 points. And you score that at the start of your command phase or at the end of the game. So if you're able to get it at the end of the game and only at the end of the game, then you're going to be getting a lot of points. Just off that, you're getting 8 points just bang on, just from having pressure on the board effectively. So if the Necron list can get pressure on the board, it's going to be racking up those points. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit tricky. I do want to comment on something I've already seen in deployment vote. And that is effectively how these Redemptor Dreadnoughts have been placed. So we were talking a little bit earlier about how the Redemptor Dreadnoughts are going to be something that are going to be bunching up, right? Specifically around these Masters of the Forge. And I think with the terrain we're already looking at, and especially the position of a Silent King, considering as a fly keyword, you're not going to be able to hide these regardless of where you go, right? Unless you're going in one of these corners behind one of these massive L's, for example, in the back left of the Marine deployment zone, you're not going to be able to hide them. And really, you're not going to want to stick them there because it just gives your opponent a huge amount of board space that you can't really touch. So you need to go centrally. What it looks like Callum's trying to do is trying to hide them slightly behind the walls. So you've got the one Redemptor on the left and the two Redemptors on the right. At that point, I don't think it matters whether you're behind a wall or not, because at the end of the day, the Silent King is going to be able to pick on one of these units here, right? So he's going to jump over and shoot one. It's not going to matter whether or not you're behind the wall. So you might as well take advantage of that and push your Redemptors as far forward as possible and get that range.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. You can also see you can also hide as a Silent King. He's 16, not 18 wound, which is a bonus. Although he isn't though, because the Menria basically tip him over on the wound cap, don't they? But they've tricked him out. That's what they've done. They've tricked him out.
There used to be a time where people would try and kill drones to make Riptides run off the board, but
and the game started. When the game started, we're going to find out from our table boss now who has got the first turn. Who won the roll-off, Nick?
We
should just know. We don't have to look ever.
Okay, I was wondering if Nick would be able to be talking to the stream, or if we're just going to listen into what Nick says, and the stream just has to wait.
We're going to listen to what Nick says, and then we're going to commentate as it happens.
All right, so it looked like Callum has won the roll, so it looks like he's going to be taking the first turn just from what he's doing. So he's putting down this +1 to hit marker, which he's putting on one of the Dreadnoughts. He's having a think about the front Redemptor, but he's decided to go for the back Leviathan instead. And he's gone for one of the Redemptors on the right-hand side here by the looks of it. So you've got this kind of bunch going on in the center. I'm really interested to see how Dave tries to handle this, for lack of a better word, Dreadnought Castle. I never thought I'd have those words in my lifetime, but, here we are. Dreadnoughts are castling. So one of the things you're looking at is...
Well, I mean, they're just mobile castles, really.
They are, but it's
armored and ready to rock, baby.
You are building units around characters, and those units just happen to be Dreadnoughts, and that causes me pain to no end. But we were talking a little bit about how we thought the Necron list might struggle to deal with these Dreadnoughts by killing them, even though it's got 2 Menrias, which do flat 6 damage to the Dreadnoughts before the -1. But at the same time, that's not the only way to deal with these things. I mean, we can talk about protocols and how the Necrons have the ability to fall out and shoot, but the Marines don't really have that. And when you're going for Oath of Moment, falling out is something you're not really wanting to be doing anyway. Now, you do have to deal with the Leviathans, which do have these big melee weapons that you've got to deal with. But and even the Redemptors have that. They have flat 3 damage on the melee weapons. But if you're rocking something like a squad of Lishguard, for example, the Lishguard is still very, very durable. They've got hyperphase shields, which mean dispersion shields.
4+ invuln.
They're basically storm shields, mate.
And you're going to be able to bring one back a turn, which is really important. There's a bunch of strats to make those guys very deadly. I wouldn't be surprised if you see them going in aggressively early, but you're going to be able to put down some pretty significant counterpunch coming out of these Dreadnoughts to whatever lands wherever.
So the question then is it realistically a possibility that you can try and lock these things down and try and get these units tied up? Realistically, I don't think it is, but I think it's a better shot that you're going to have than if you're actually going to try and kill these bastards. So if you try and charge in with your Lich Guard, you try at Praetorians, and you're flayed ones in one go. Now the dreadnoughts can still fight. They'll fight in your turn. They'll shoot in the enemy turn. They'll then fight in the enemy turn as well. But they don't really want to fall out. So you're getting like some options in terms of how much your opponent is able to push up. If the Necrons are able to jump forwards and try and tag all these dreadnoughts and just lock them in and just harvest a big points lead, then maybe you can get away with it. The problem is, that's not really what you want to be doing with Surround Them. With Surround Them, you want to be able to take that board pressure late game rather than taking it earlier. If you take it early, you've got a bit of an issue now because you're never going to be able to get that Surround Them point because you don't really want to be overcommitting for it because you have to sit on those objectives for an entire opposition turn to try and get those points. If you're trying, so what you really want to do if you're Necrons here is bide your time, slowly chip away at the Marines, and then you go for it, and then you try and lock them down and get that pressure.
Okay, all right. Like a lot coming out of there, Tom. I like that early doors, big plays. Effectively, this game, Tom, I'm not gonna lie, reminds me of the meme. There's a lot of coffins being walked around. That's what I see.
There are.
Yeah,
that's basically what a Necron is, right? Especially the crypto thralls. So basically, I mean, those bins could easily be coffins, right?
They could be. So as you can see, one of the, in my opinion, one of the most important elements that we're going to see here is the Warlord, who gives units objective secured. So pushing into that mid-board late game to have some objective obscured versus not, secured versus not, is going to be really important. Now we're into the Psychic phase. Librarian obviously trying to get off Sanctuary there, but probably, is that really important? Is
Psychic Fortress, yeah.
Psychic Fortress, yeah. Like, is that really important? Like, he hasn't left a lot of options out. He's just moved up aggressively with one of the Levy Dreads. And as you can see, he's pushed out and stopped a lot of what Veil of Darkness is going to be able to put out. These incursors blocking out the area around the front here. This incursor, so he's got a lot of board control. So he's stopping Veil. He's stopping anything deep striking. He's stopping anything coming in from the side. So not a lot of play, really, for the Necrons.
Absolutely. And we were talking a little bit earlier about how the Necron player wants to be able to like chip away at the Marine list so that it can get some pressure like turns 3 or 4. Whereas if you just play this conservatively, what exactly is the Necron player meant to do here? How are they ever going to do any damage to remove enough stuff to have that pressure turns 3 or 4? Now, the question you then have is, well, how am I going to deal with these incursors that are now stood in front of the board? Am I going to shoot you off? Not really very likely. You've got a squad of 15 Necron warriors just jamming. You've got 2 squads of 5 immortals, and then you've got the shooting from the Silent King. But you don't really want to be burning that on the incursors because you... And even if you do kill these 2 squads of incursors, you've got another 2 squads that are going to come in as well. You've got 4 squads in this list. So you've got a lot of clearing out of the center to do before you're even going to be able to think about doing.
Do you think what we're going to see? What do you think? What we're going to see is because there are only 2 units of incursors on the board. I'll show you here. They're here and here. Do you think he's going to see them trade off early, lose those incursors, and then bring some more on late game? I don't think they're anywhere else.
I mean, there's still 2 in the corners though. Like he's already thought about this.
Oh no, sorry. All four are deployed, as you can see on those objectives.
Yeah, but 2 basically on the game. It's fine.
Yeah.
They're not doing anything. They're just stood in the corner. I think but dude, this is one of the side effects of having the smaller board. You can do this. Now you've got these 2 units in the corner. If I draw, I don't know if people can see, but I don't think I could even draw.
No,
so
just tell me, what do you want me to show people?
No, it's fine. So
if
let's
we weren't
say
in COVID, we could do it in the same room. Tell me what you want me to draw.
You've got these 2 squads of incursors on the left-hand side, right, in the corners, right?
Yep.
They're blocking off these corners themselves effectively, but you can still run them into the center of the board, block off the entire center, and still leave no room to your opponent to drop in the corners because you can just push those Leviathans out without really any consequences.
I mean, are the Leviathans even really scared of the... are they even really scared of anything in the Necron force? That's the real question.
Then, like, what are they going to do? Like, we talk about countercharge units all the time, but not really countercharge, but they are short-ranged. If you're going to get value out of them, you are either going to push them up or you're going to sit them here and say, come at me then. Because...
I'm just letting everyone know we're into the shooting phase now, so we'll find out what's... So the Leviathan is shooting into the Lich Guard, and they've all been saved.
Of course, yeah, fantastic. Good job. Good work, Lich Guard. Good work.
And there's still a lot more shots to come out of those Levy Dreads.
See them on that far side going for it, mate.
The terror of 8th edition returns, which is nice. It's really, really fun seeing how not aggressive the rest of the Dreadnoughts have been, realistically. It's because like, so you've got the Dreadnoughts. We'll talk about the Dreadnoughts all game. -1 damage. There's so much output to come out of them. But the Dreadnoughts are able to activate and play this game so well because of these cheap units of incursors So they've already given Callum the mid-board game turn 1. He doesn't have to play aggressive. He doesn't have to push up. He has to say, the Necron guy, so he has to say to Dave, bring your Necrons out of the corner. Bring them out from where they're hiding. You have to come and engage with me. I'm up on the primary. You're not. I've got the board. You haven't. You have to come and play. And he's done that with the cheapest units in his army. And that utility that you're getting from those units is so vital in what is now 9th edition.
Absolutely. And that's a fantastic point to make as well, because even though he's going second, you're basically just saying to David, come at me, bro. Like, that's the only way you're going to win this game. Let's look at the points that I'm going to be harvesting. I have more objectives than you. Good luck. That means you're going to be getting 40 points on the primary, and I'm going to be getting 45. There's a 5-point bonus. You also have to surround them. You need to be able to start pushing me around this board and to collect those points at the end, whereas I'm just going to get while we stand, while we fight, because you can't touch me, engage no fronts, because you can't touch me, and raise the banners high, because, again, you can't touch me. You have to come at me, and you have to push me off these points and gain your own, because your points dictate that you have to come and get me. A side effect of having this engage no fronts, which I'm not necessarily a massive fan of, but I feel like there wasn't really a better option, is that it plays very much into the Purge of the Vermin secondary that the Necrons are running. So Purge of Vermin is the specific Necron secondary that says at the end of my turn... Oh, sorry, Rob.
No, I just want to let everyone know that we have moved. We have moved. I want to hear it, but I'm just letting you know we have moved into the Necron's first turn. 2 points obviously scored on engage on all fronts there, like we talked about.
I mean, we're also talking about how you didn't actually need to do anything. So what's happened there? Callum's moved up, he's taken board pressure, and he said, look, I'm going to take my couple of points. I don't actually even need to kill you. I'll have a couple of bot shots, but that's about it. So now we need to see Dave really make some pushes here. I don't think he needs to necessarily do
the question is, Tom, does he try and play the cagey game, or is the cagey game bad for him? Is it go aggressive straight away, really big, overload the threats? Can he not bring the Silent King out and do have a turn at least of trying to bring down one of the dreadnoughts? Or is that just not an option?
I feel like it's a bit of both, really. He has to push, but at the same time, if he pushes too hard, he's going to just lose everything, which is going to be a massive problem, unless you're hungry, in which case, fantastic. We can go and get some food. That's about it. As it stands, I feel like he needs to find a way to remove these 2 squads of Incursors, because if he can remove these 2 squads of Incursors, his turn 1, he removes 2. His turn 2, he removes the next 2. And then his turn 3, now he's got that space to drop down these 15 warriors, those 9 flayed ones, and Vale, and then move the Praetorians up as well. The question is, how is he going to remove those 2 units in a safe manner? We can already see the Catacomb Command Barge pushing up. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the answer. I don't know if it can even see from there, because even though it's got windows, you can't see through there. He does have to remove these Incursors, though, because otherwise he's going to lose 2 points this turn from the Purge of Vermin, because there is an enemy unit inside of his deployment zone.
He's also going to let Callum get that 15-point primary turn 1, which is going to be very, very strong. Going into turn 2, sorry. Which again, those pre-game moves, those Incursors, Nurglings, those units that can get up onto those objectives early, pose not only a problem in the tic-tac-toe of you give a unit, I give a unit, and the trading game that is so synonymous with objective-based gaming. You also effectively just get yourself a competent push towards primary scoring very early, which is really nice, because then it frees you up turns 4-5. If you can go 15 points turns 1-2, it frees you up turns 4-5 to not have to make as many risky decisions on objectives.
Right.
And your opponents on the other side of that, they've got to make a lot of choices.
There's a flip side to that as well, though, because if you're now able to remove both these squads of Incursors, then you're going to be 2-2 on objectives. You're denying your opponent 5 points, and then that gives some breathing room where, in order to get that primary lead that we were talking about being so important earlier, it means that now Callum is going to have to try and take one of those objectives out of the hands of Dave to try and get that 5-point lead in the primaries. Although that said, does he even need to win in the primaries? He could just consistently go even and then say, don't get around you.
He doesn't have to do anything right now because he can't place a model. It's drunk. It's not magnetic. It just won't stick on the board. He's trying his hardest. It's just not happening. If he presses L, that will lock it. But
you don't want to do that. You want to charge. You don't want to lock it to the board. What are you talking about? That's the point, actually, Rob. I've got a question for you, mate. You know how there's that, I don't know if it's a myth, but you know how if you give a cow an apple, the way it digests it, it makes it drunk? What do you give a Necron to make it drunk? Like WD-40?
Basically, yeah. WD-40 really is the go-go juice of the Necron force.
All right, okay. I'll bear that in mind for next time I'm playing Necrons. Just spray my opponent in the face with WD-40.
So as you can see, Tom, this Lichguard unit, not saying I called it, yeah, but they've got +1 to move and they've got +1 to hit. Pretty certain.
Are they coming out to go and whack some incursors and then hope to all heavens that they actually fight the charge and then don't die to all the dreads?
Well, so they're Novox, so they're going to have +1 to charge, and the warlord who is the Technomancer, he's not the warlord, sorry, because obviously Silent King has to be the warlord, but the Technomancer, he's got Veil of Darkness. He's also got a warlord trait, which is reroll charges, so an 8-inch rerollable charge, or he's got +2 to move on those Lich Guards, so we might see them just move into the midfield. Not certain that's the right decision, but if I'm right in this, Tom, those 2 Redemptor Dreadnoughts that we see at the back hiding, they're going to have to make some like big movements into the kind of midfield to be able to shoot down that fire lane. I wonder if this one near the Librarian was set up to either move right, move left, depending on where all the deployment happened. I tell you what, if I was an Incursor right now, I'd be terrified of this dive bombing Catacomb command barge, right?
Yeah, here it comes. It's just going to fall on top of your models. Imagine you spent so many months painting those nicely, and then some guy just does that on your real table. You can't do this in real life, folks. TTS for life.
Right, so I think pretty certain Veil of Darkness happens at the end of the movement phase.
It does, correct. Yes.
So we're still waiting to see the rest of this movement. The Scarabs.
Please.
What, you don't want him to do it now? You think he's waiting?
Right, what's a win con here? If you burn your Veil here to clear out these Incursors, how exactly are you going to deal with all these Dreadnoughts later on in the game?
Well, I don't think you are, but I think what you could do, I think what you could do if you get the charge in the right place is you could hug in after consolidation. You could hug in into the terrain. You could move it, and then you take a Dreadnought, maybe 2 into you. You don't take all 6 into you, and those 2 they're not shooting. We'll see what happens, right? Maybe it's the wrong play.
I'm so glad we're on the honest Wargamer for this one and not the T-Sports Network when you're using phraseology like that, mate. I'm going to be honest.
What did I say? What, getting them in?
I could take 6 dudes. Oh dear, mate. That's okay. Now, but there is a little bit of an interesting discussion here, because you could get those Praetorians over to try and charge these Incursors in the middle, right? Because they do have that 10-inch move that does make it a little bit more consistent, unlike the Lich Guard, which now have a 7-inch move. But at the same time, those Lich Guard have a 4+ invulnerable save. So if you're going to try and cheese it and try and get away with one, probably more likely you're going to get away with one with the unit that has an invulnerable save into all this stupid plasma than the one that doesn't.
Well, so I think what's interesting is he could overload him. Honestly, I think he could overload him with threats, basically. So he's got the Catacomb Command Barge. Don't forget, he's reducing damage by 1. Yeah, he's got quantum shielding. He's a baller. Yeah, you throw the Lich Guard into this center objective here. Yeah, take out these Incursors. Right, yeah, then they're fighting the Dreads, but that's cool. Then you move the Silent King right into the middle. Yeah, the other 3 Dreadnoughts are there as well. Yeah, and now it's like, okay, the Dreadnoughts are all going to get some pot shots off, and they're all going to be involved, absolutely. But then they're out as well. So now he's just spread how many threats, and maybe he can bring enough of it to bear onto the Catacomb Command Barge and enough on the Lich Guard. But does he do all of it in a turn? The answer might be no. And then the midboard looks a lot more like it's moving towards the Necrons, and then the Dreadnoughts have to move up. And Dreadnoughts don't have the numbers. They've got to bring the character, so they've got to bring the Master Forge up, who's giving them objective secure, and put them into the midfield as well. They don't have the bodies. Yeah, they've got 1 objective secure Dreadnought, yeah, but then you've got Scarab Swarms, you've got a whole bunch of other bodies, and you've got some slow-moving infantry buffing up the Dreads. So,
you do.
The Dreadnoughts could definitely do the damage, but I feel if he puts enough threats out straight away, yeah, he gets the midboard back, which maybe changes the pace of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, though, we kind of underestimate the damage that these Dreadnoughts do a little bit. We were talking about how the plasma does a lot of damage to Marines. Well, it does a lot of damage to everything, mate. You've got D6 shots, they've got 3 damage flat. They will, one-shot a Falcon if you let the thing, which I have it on good authority that they do. In addition to that, they are very, very good in close combat. Each of these Redemptors has flat 3 damage, which is really, really nasty if you're playing as things like Wraiths or you're playing as other Marines. Now, if you're looking at these Scarabs, those Scarabs have got 20 wounds off 4 bases. That's a lot of wounds for the number of points you're spending. But at the same time, it doesn't matter if 2 whacks is going to do all that damage you absolutely need. So realistically, we're going to see a trade-off here regardless, because you can hide as much as you want in that terrain. You're still going to get charged by Dreadnoughts and they're still going to sting.
Well, it looks like that's not going to be the case, and my idea to overload everything has not been taken this day. The Catacomb Command Barge is hidden back with some Scarab Sword popping out. The Immortal have just popped their little head out for a cheeky shot, as has one of the Triarchal Menrears has done a cheeky line of sight straight off to that Dreadnought, looking to pop that 6 damage over there as well, which kind of makes sense. You want that Tech Marine effectively having to move around to do his heals and not just shoot where you want him to be.
Yeah.
And then we haven't seen. I think these Dreadnought. The Praetorian here. They're not seeable, so they're safe.
No.
The Scarab Swarmed have moved up.
Okay, and they're projecting some power across there as well. So what are we going for, mate? Are we in the shooting phase?
We are in the shooting phase, so that's how the board's going to look. That's the set. Those are the plays. How do you feel about those plays?
Well, we're talking about what we're going to do, what Dave's going to do about these 2 Incurser squads. It looks like he's going to completely ignore the bottom side Incurser squad here and instead fully commit into this top right-hand squad here. Now, we were talking a little bit about how conservative do you go, how aggressive do you go. It looks like we are getting a balance, but we're getting a balance of I'm going to commit as much stuff as I need to kill these Incursors over here, but I'm not going to commit any stuff on the other side. Now, as you were saying, it may be that it's like, oh, well, as my opponent needs to now shoot off all this stuff on my right-hand side anyway, I could commit some stuff on my left-hand side for free and not lose anything. But I don't think that's actually true here. I think that what's on the board will handily kill all of his right-hand side stuff and then would have room to kill all the stuff on the left-hand side as well. So there's no point giving away free units. Plus, if you're going to kill one squad of Incursors, this squad on the top side is going to be the squad. It's preventing you from getting your Purge of Vermin. It's making points available for the engaging all fronts for Callum. And it is also the furthest squad out, which means if you remove that and sit on that objective, you're also going to be free for free and stopping Callum from getting those 5 points on the primary. Whether or not we're going to get onto that objective is a different question. I want to see Callum remove these Incursors on the bottom side that are closest to the objective. Not because I think it's not if he needs to be off that objective, but I feel like if he takes the models off the bottom side, it's going to make it harder for these Scarabs to pile in onto that objective.
I quite like the idea that the Catacomb Command Barge is going to be dealing with these Incursors here. This Dreadnought's going to try and pop his little head out to try and get to him and deal with it. If he isn't able to, or he's not in range, or he can't draw a line of sight, then the Catacomb Command Barge can whip down and deal with these Incursors again at the bottom and generally make a menace of himself and kind of run a flank, which is quite nice.
Yeah, I mean,
but there is,
he does
but
have
you know,
damage,
at the end of the day, it's 10 wounds with a 3-up save. Like, you know, with a 6-up DPR. Damn iron hands. That DPR save, it sounds like disgusting resilience, but better.
Yeah. I mean, how dare you? Imagine if they had disgustingly resilient and they had -1 damage, especially specifically against this Catacomb Command Barge. So this Catacomb Command Barge, as I've already said a few times, is -1 damage, but it's also got the Voltaic Staff. Now, the Voltaic Staff, like a lot of Necron weapons, are both shooting and melee weapons. So in this case, Voltaic Staff has 4 assault 4 shots. It's pseudo Tesla, so every unmodified 6 you get to hit generates an extra hit. It's 18-inch range. Now in melee, it is strength +1, AP -2, damage 2. Now imagine, oh, that hurts my eyes. Never mind. Imagine you had disgustingly resilient and you were making all that damage 1. You would be causing a world of pain for this. Now we have just seen Callum remove some of these Incursors. Now he's gone for a little bit of a. I see what he's doing here. So what he's doing is he's removed a couple of Incursors to try and make the charge longer, but he's also leaving a Tom as objective. Now I feel like that's a little bit of a misplay personally, just because making the charge longer doesn't do very much for you. The Scarabs are basically right on top of you. It's not realistically going to do anything, especially the possibility of a reroll charge, because you've got no way to stop a stratagem coming in. It also allows these Scarabs to more easily pile into those objectives. So what you're essentially banking on by doing this is that your Incursors are going to live through the assault phase. Now, Dave does need to leave some Incursors alive at the end of his shooting phase. He needs to weaken them as much as possible, but not kill them. He is also taking a wound off the Incursor that is not on the objective. So if that Incursor drops, now suddenly maybe it is worth taking those guys off because you've got a slightly longer charge range. The problem is if you can then get into combat with the Scarabs and then kill that model, you will hold that objective. And almost certainly the Scarabs will do that. They have a stratagem that allows a Scarab base to blow up and do some mortal wounds. And then they have quite a good number of attacks on the charge as well.
Who would have thought tiny Scarabs would be so scary unless you'd watched the fantastic Brendan Fraser The Mummy. In the rest of the shooting phase, though, Tom, the Menrear as shot into this Leviathan Dreadnought you guys can see on the screen. It popped smoke, making it -1 to hit. However, it did hit, and then the stratagem was used from the Necrons to auto-wound it. We don't know if the invulnerable save was passed. I'll just double-check.
Looks like it may have been, because I don't see any...
Failed the invuln, and then CP re-rolled it to pass. So in total, we had 3 stratagems used in that engagement. -1 to hit, auto wound, re-roll on the invuln, and then we ended up with no result. But into the charge phase, we did get those scarabs charged in just like you wanted. And do you feel this is going to go? This is going to go for the scarabs in this situation?
Please use a stratagem. Please use a stratagem. Please use a stratagem.
And again, the stratagem. I know you've just told us, but let's remind us once more what the stratagem has done.
Scarabs have access to a stratagem that allows one of their models to blow up to do D3 mortal wounds to the enemy unit. I believe I'll specifically get the stratagem for you. Just while it looks like replacing the scarab base, it looks like it's going to try and wrap those, spread them out a little bit. I don't know what's going on with that scarab base going behind the incursor. It may be to try and wrap, but I don't really see the need to if you're going to try and kill the whole squad. Anyway, I'm just trying to work my way through the labyrinth that is the Necron Codex. Very, very appropriate for such an ancient book, and I'll just see if I can try and find the name of the stratagem specifically.
Okay, well, no problem. Just I'll let you know what's happened while you're looking at that. So these incursors have got one of Nick's favourite little weapons, the Haywire Mine. That's right, and these scarabs, as they trickled in, there's enough of them that they tripped the mine, exploded, did some mortal wounds into the scarabs as they landed. So they've set a sneaky trap, which makes sense, right? These frontline Marines, this is what they do. They set up, they set traps, and then they die, almost always.
So here's the issue here. Firstly, the scarabs have 4 wounds. So if that thing's doing D3 mortal wounds, you're just doing wounds to a scarab base that's probably going to die anyway, because they're going to spend 1 CP to use the self-destruction stratagem, which allows you to take off 1 scarab base when unit is selected to fight. You then roll a dice. On a 2 to 5, that enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. On a 6, they suffer flat 3. Now, if you roll a 1, you can't CP re-roll it, so it's a little bit risky. But as we've seen from this game already, these guys aren't afraid to throw CP down the toilet, so we may see that come out. I also think that is a smart strat here.
Okay.
We going to see the command barge coming in here, or are we just going to see the scarabs?
So the other charges, we're still in the charge phase. These are mortals here.
Look at him go!
They tried it. They tried this long bomb charge. Unfortunately, they didn't make it. So the scarabs are left to fight on their own. Who will win? Really, some insect boys made of metal, or 100-year-old genetically wrought superhumans, prepped, primed, and ready to battle, stood near. And again, a ruined city, as all 40k boards are a ruined city, and stood very close to this one objective. But I mean, we've had some monumental discussions about possibly the cheapest engagement on the board, the Scarab Swarm versus the Incursors. Pardon me?
I think it is the cheapest engagement on the board. You've got the cheapest unit fighting from one army, fighting the cheapest unit from the other army. Now, the Scarabs still have a lot of attacks, so we've got 16 attacks in total. They're hitting on 4s, though. They're wounded on 5s, and they only damage 1, but 6s to hit automatically cause wounds.
However, now, they got 3 wounds through, but they only managed... but they only managed to do the 1 wound.
Okay, so here's what's happened here. Callum's entire strategy of leaving this one guy on this objective, where on the one hand it made it very easy for the Scarabs to try and grab onto that objective themselves, but on the other end it also made it harder for them to make the charge off. Now the Scarabs made the charge, but they just didn't kill the guy, so that means that objective is going to be held by the Space Marines this turn, unless they somehow fail a morale check, which I don't see as realistic, because they're Space Marines, they re-roll it. Pretty good. Oh, no, we don't. They changed the initial non-affair, didn't they?
They have.
So even then, you've got a good chance to re-roll it anyway, so you should be okay. That Space Marine is now just clubbed 2 Scarabs to death. Those Scarabs could have died usefully by exploding, but never mind. That's all right. But that's big, because it also means that you're going to get 5 points on the board for the Space Marines, for the primary objective being held by more units. You're also going to get an engage in all fronts, because if you want to, you can spend 2 CP to get them out, or you can just try and tank the Scarabs up. And also you're denying the Necrons 2 points off of their Purge of Vermin secondary objective as well. Not that they can't get them back later on in the game, but it is something that is worth noting, because, I don't think you can even get Purge of Vermin in turn 1 anyway, but it doesn't matter. That's a 7-point swing just by that guy living.
Well, so we were into the morale phase. We did talk about what needed to happen on this young Incursor. He failed his morale, would have ran off. So he got CP re-rolled, brought back onto the and kept in just because that CP reroll there. So a lot of CP generally being used in this small engagement and there. I wonder if that'll be important later, the usage of these CPs, because effectively, like we've talked about, there's a lot of stratagems for giving reroll ones to hit auras, making it so that you can heal more than one of the vehicles around you, and all of those slowly dwindling in the capacity. I'm just going to get a double check on the CP left for both players. I think you've only got 2 left, 4 now for the Marines, and 8 going on.
And straight away we can see the primary points coming in for Calendar as well, getting that big old maxi boy out of there as well. That's going to make life very, very easy for him, because now all he needs to do is hold 2 objectives for the remaining 3 turns, and he's maxed out his primary objective. As we were talking about in the show, you could afford to drop 3 of these. You don't have to hold more, just hold 2. And realistically, if you just want to castle up and push the Necrons off you anyway, you've got a really good chance of doing that by just pushing Incursors out.
Yeah, it's a big swing, that 15 points straight away into this turn. Yeah, really good. I'm just updating this, Tom, so you're going to have to vamp for me. I don't have Scriver in the room. I'm a one-man stream machine. So you keep telling me what's going on there. What would you do now if you were... So what are you going to... So we're into Space Marines turn 2. They've scored the 15 VP. What do you think is going to be the play that the Marine players are going to make here?
I feel like it's just a case of pushing these Incursors out. You take the Incursors on the right, you can shove them up if you want to, but I don't really feel like you need to. You can also just ignore these Scarab Base on the right. You don't really care about these. Maybe they tag up some Leviathans, but I mean, it's whatever. It's not really a big deal. Although I don't see any way the Leviathans can really shoot at these. I just don't want to see Callum try and push out the Leviathans to try and get shots there. I feel like it's better just to stay put where he is. If I want to see anything being pushed out at all, I want to see these Incursors on the left kind of fanning out a little bit towards the center objective. I would also be tempted, if I was Callum, to remove this Incursor from the center just by falling back and then falling back towards this unstable position in the center on the objective, right? So it's very much like, how risky do you want to be with it? If you can get some other models onto that objective anyway, so for example, visit a squad of Incursors, then maybe you can do some work with it. But if you're going to hold them back like this in this ruin, I feel like you need to spend the 2 CP on this Incursor on the left-hand side to fan out. Instead, what it looks like he's doing is he's going to take this Leviathan and use it as a screen instead, which is bold. I feel like at this point he feels like he can give up a Dreadnought just to screen out to protect the other Dreadnoughts instead. Because even if you lose one Dreadnought a turn at this point, you're still going to have Dreadnoughts left. So it's not a massive deal.
Yeah. There's a lot going on here. Guys in the chat helping us out with some of the rules that are occurring here on the table.
Yeah, I mean, when I say things, it's more the intent of what I'm saying rather than the specifics. I mean, there is an option to be able to stay alive from morale if you're willing to spend the CP. It's not necessarily re-roll. It's to settle down.
Don't worry. It's not an event that we've organised so we can place well in the rankings. It's just a little league event.
ITC rankings in the first place anyway. Like pussies.
Right, okay. So he's pushed up with these. We're into I don't think we've seen +1 to hit go on to both of these 2 Redemptor Dreadnoughts here. So that's really important. It's going to be important to keep track of that, because I think that means they're going to be stepping out potentially. But
wait,
maybe
Rob,
not.
Have we talked about something very important in this game yet, by the way, mate? I just want to raise a very important point.
What is it?
The tokens for these objectives being unstable positions are wet floor signs.
Okay. Is that important?
No, not at all, but I liked it.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So the Incursor has stepped out.
There it is. There's the 2 CP. That's what we like to see, mate. And he's pushing out as far as he can just to make it as awkward as possible for you to strike anything down.
So just using to zone the board.
Zone as much of the board as you can, even if it's worthless space. That's all right. If maybe I'd probably go slightly further to the right rather than forwards just for it, because you don't really need to control this space in front of the Silent King. But I mean, it's there. It's all right. I can respect it. Love it.
Good. All right. Well, that's good. He's out and he's safe from those Scarabs who were giving him a good kick in earlier, all the rest of his mates, and now he's running away. So he's in a safer spot than he was. But the 2 Redemptors have stepped out, and as you can see, they're looking to clear off maybe the Scarabs and the Immortals off that back objective, threaten it. Now, of course, we know those 2 Crypto Thralls are hidden here,
yes.
keeping that objective. So even if the Immortals do go down, we're going to see those Crypto Thralls be safe for holding on to that objective in the bottom left-hand corner. But it looks like Callum looking to generally just reduce how many units are knocking around on the board. This other sneaky Scarab swarm, still available and running up, although I don't really fancy their chances versus a whole a whole Leviathan Dreadnought on their own. But looks like the Leviathan is also stepping out as well, looking to try and draw line of sight to the Silent King through this little gap you can see here, and see if that's possible. Or if not, just starting on the Lich Guard.
So I like these Redemptors, because if you actually look at where Dave is able to place any of his stuff via Deep Strike, he can't go on the left because of his big squad of 5 Incursors on the back left objective. You can't go in the middle because this Incursor has fallen out for 2 CP and just hidden in this ruin. And you can't go onto the right because of these Incursors on the right. Now, these Leviathans I like a lot less, because you are always going to be able to get some models Deep Struck down in front of those Scarab Swarms if you really want to, right? Then on the left-hand side, you could have said, well, you can't Deep Strike there because of these Incursors, but it doesn't really matter because you've left a gap. Like, so long as there's one gap, you don't need a second gap. It doesn't really matter. But now what's happening is these Incursors are pushing forwards. And this, I'm really not sure, because it gives the opportunity for the Lich Guard to make a really consistent charge here. If you're getting 7 inches move there, then you can charge in with a reroll. You can make that charge pretty easily and then hide inside this ruin. Then, because there's a bit of a parking lot backup going on with these Redemptors, you're getting hit by the 2 Leviathans on this right-hand side, and then maybe a third Redemptor can come around and sneak around, but then it's exposing itself to the Silent King and to the Triarch Praetorians as well. So I really am not sure about how aggressively he's pushing on this right-hand side. I don't think you need to at this point. All you need to do is sit tight, max your primary for 45, and then just beat him or meet him on that secondary point, because there is no way realistically that Dave is going to be able to max out that primary at that point, because I do not see a scenario where if Callum just sits there and does nothing, apart from countercharge, if Dave goes to go for the push, where he's ever going to be able to max that primary. So therefore, now all you need to do is draw on the secondaries.
Well, so there's loads to unpack there, really. I think one of the key factors here is that there's lots to trade off. Those Dreadnoughts are not easy to take out. And they're not easy to take out if you have the right tools. And it's arguable that Dave, with his Necrons, doesn't have a lot of the right tools. The Lich Guard are good. They are good, but you're up against a whole army of toughness 7 effectively, 5 up invulnerable saves, -1 damage coming in, and 6 up DPR, so they're very, very tanky. And some of these units just aren't really designed to take out these Dreadnoughts, which is quite nice. We talk. I know obviously everyone has been focusing on the Death Guard rule that we've just seen posted today with the -1 damage. Actually, it's really, really interesting, that conversation, because you've seen the damage to weapons in the Necron force here, specifically, in my opinion, there to start taking out Marines if you come up against a heavy intercessor block. Don't forget, these guys didn't just like roll up a random army to play against each other. It's part of a league and tournament. So your idea is you're probably expecting to play a bunch of intercessors. You're probably expecting to play a bunch of 2-wound models generally knocking around. So they're really useful having in your army. However, against these Dreadnoughts, they don't play well. They don't play well at all. So it's kind of interesting having that conversation, because actually, if you traded these all off for the new Plague Marines, let's say, those damage 2 weapons are also something you definitely pick to put in against a Marine heavy meta, and then they are worse versus Death Guard, so a significant buff, in my opinion, for the Death Guard, and also not good into these lovely, lovely, half-dead Space Marines in coffins. That's what they are, nearly alive.
Very true.
Nearly alive, boys.
I mean, we're talking about like what the tools are to kill these Redemptors. I mean, we talk about the Lich Guard. Even then, the Lich Guard are wounding on 5, so the AP -3 doesn't matter so much when you've got a 5+ vulnerable just coming out your bum. The damage 1 is actually quite nice, because it means that you completely ignore the -1 damage regardless. The problem that you have is you don't really have the tools to kill any of these things. I mean, we talk about the Silent King. Maybe it's able to take some wounds off some stuff, but realistically, over 5 turns, it's going to kill like 2-3 Dreadnoughts maximum. I think the way that you're going to have to deal with them is just by tagging them up, which is why I'm saying you just sit back and then you just say, well, you're just not going to tag me because I'm just lobbing Incursors at you, which I also feel we talked about Surround Them a lot. We've talked a little bit about Purge of Vermin just because of this Incursor squad on the top left, but we haven't really talked about Bring It Down. And Bring It Down basically means that you get 3 points for every vehicle above 10 wounds that you kill, or 2 points for every vehicle underneath that, right? So every vehicle that Dave is able to kill here is worth 3 points. But how many vehicles is he killing, really? Like, what's he going to kill? Is he going to kill like 3 vehicles, as we've spoken about with the Silent King? Maybe 4 if he gets lucky. You're immediately dropping 3 or 6 points there as well. And remember, you have to win the secondary trade-off. You have to win it. Otherwise, it's just over, man. Because
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to
Well,
win
it's
this
why
primary
it's why
battle
it's why I
anymore.
would have got it's why I'd have gone really heavy with the Lich Guard early. I just pushed him in and just been like deal with these, let's go.
Yeah, you
Let's
have
see
to
where
risk
we're
it.
at. Yeah, like you have to.
Yeah.
So right now, as you guys are seeing on the tabletop, we are in the shooting phase for Marines. This is turn 2 for Marines. They went first. So according to all good internet logic, they're at the ascendancy here. And the first turn engagement from both players
was
wasn't
why.
particularly. Yeah, the first turn engagement for both players wasn't particularly stellar. There was some pot shots taken, which did nothing by the Marines. Turn 1, sorry, for Necrons, we saw these Scarab Swarms that you can see here and these Immortals shoot into a unit of Incursors, took him down to 1, but he's now run away. Now these Redemptors in turn 2 have pushed out, and they are starting to take pot shots into these, like I said, Immortals below. And looks like they haven't taken them out yet. And even if they do take them out, there's still those 2
Yes.
Crypto Thralls hidden underneath, keeping them out. But I think reducing the units available on the board against the Necrons is useful.
Also, let's be honest, rolling shots is fun. So I mean, that's probably the most useful thing we're going to be finding from this. So you push those Redemptors up. You basically say, well, if you charge these Incursors, I'm going to trade off with you by moving these things 8 inches forward, shooting and charging whatever charges votes, right? So it's just a counter charge threat onto these Incursors. He's really just trying to push this counter charge angle as much as he can. Now, while we're talking about it, I want to
hold on. Let me just tell you how we've done in the shooting
absolutely.
phase. We've had
Yeah.
2 units. We've had 2 units of Redemptors. So these 2 fire into these Immortals, and they've only taken them down to 2. We've had to go into the third one. It's the third one firing now, and it might be that all 3 units aren't able to wipe out that unit of Immortals, which would be very frustrating for the Marine player.
I mean, it's frustrating because you want to kill him, but it's not really
the
frustrating
last
because no one
shot.
really cares,
The
to be
last
honest.
shot with the last gun. You're the last man on the line, and the last bullet ever fired in the war just took you out. So the very last shot from the Redemptor took out that unit there. But those
Wow.
Crypto Thralls are still holding it.
I'm sure that now that we've killed those 5 Immortals, it's going to really swing the game. But either way, dead models, we all love it. It also means that there's one fewer thing to be able to deal with this Incursor in the center of the board now. So now you're going to have to commit either that Catacomb Command Barge or run some Crypto Thralls out. I feel like the Catacomb Command Barge comes over and whacks it. But just going back to that Lich Guard point that you made earlier about you just go for it, you try and charge those Incursors in the center, you remove those squads. I feel like that's a winning play. It's not a very high chance play. For example, you could go for it and say, well, I've got like a 20% chance that I win the game by doing this, but it's 20% chance is the best chance I'm going to get, right? And so maybe you go for that. But you have to remember, we are playing with the WTC scoring method here.
Mm-hmm.
So effectively, for every 5 points you win, you get a tournament point up to a maximum of 20. So it may just be that Dave has already said, yeah, my secondaries weren't great. I wasn't able to get that first turn, which means that I couldn't like run into the center of these ruins and just try and pressure the objectives without risking myself. So I'm just going to try and sit tight here and score as many primaries as I can and maybe pick up a couple of points on the backside. I don't think that's necessarily realistic, because if you sit back there, maybe you get 6 points on Bring It Down, 0 points on Surround Them, and then you pick up 8 points on Purge of Vermin, which means you're dropping 7, 9, and 15 points respectively. So that is a total of 31 points dropped. And then you're going to get 40 points off primary, which means you're going to drop another 5, which means that now you are going to drop 36 points, which means you're going to get like 54 points to 90, right? And that means it's going to be like an 18-2, 19-1 to the Marines in this one.
So to let everyone know, just clarified for Tom, like the WT scoring system effectively means that in order to progress through this pseudo tournament that's happening online, the points differential between your final score between the 2 players determines and is translated into a 20-0 system. So it's more determiner of how well you did in the game, and then who you play up against next. Effectively.
Yes, absolutely. So the margin of victory is then translated into a different scoring system rather than just being a margin of victory. For example,
Yes.
it means that now actually taking points off your opponent has some kind of value.
So we've just seen the two Leviathan Dreadnoughts. They were shooting into, I think they were shooting into the Lich Guard here, but they managed to do nothing. I'm pretty certain.
Of course. Imagine if they'd done.
Oh, one died.
Hey, you can res one back. You've got a Technomancer over
Yeah,
here, mate.
you can put one back every turn. And I think that's the end of the Marine turn. So we are now into Necron's turn 2. So this is Dave playing his Necrons. This is the state of the board, as you can see.
Are we getting a 3-point engage here?
These 2 Leviathan Dreadnoughts have pushed up. This other Leviathan Dreadnought has returned and is now babysat by that Tech Marine, just in case any shots come out of this Menreir, and he can be able to heal him up. This other Tech Marine, the Master of the Forge, who's also the Warlord, and makes these Redemptor Dreadnoughts objective secured. He is pushing forward, or they're pushing forward. They've been drawing very thin line of sights along these avenues of fire, and that's what these Dreadnoughts have done. That's also the good thing about, this is also the really good thing about these Dreadnoughts, Tom, is that for the footprint, you can put a lot of firepower into a small-ish footprint to draw a very precise line, like a line of fire. If we just jump down to this eyeball, if you see these Redemptor Dreadnoughts are shooting through 3 pieces of terrain effectively, but it's not. There's just a very small line of fire here you can pop your head out in. Other units, Eradicators, other units, they'd be as vulnerable as everyone else in that kind of like line up there. Showing how 9th edition, this terrain is so important, and being able to move between these. So mobility, but also the ability to project and enforce power in very small avenues of fire. Quite important, actually, from these guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go on.
No, I was absolutely just going to talk about a couple of things with these dreadnoughts. So, as we've already talked about, they're very difficult to deal with from shooting, but they're also very hard to charge as well, because they can still shoot you even if they're in close combat, and they've got big ass melee fists which just whack you really hard, and they still keep that -1 damage, unlike things like wave serpents. I'm just looking at the engage on all fronts. It looked like this squad on the bottom side here would have been within 6 inches of the center, but it looks like they're not, because they have picked up the maximum number of points for engaging all fronts on the last turn for the Space Marines. I'd also be interested to find out what the what we stand, what we fights are. So I may check that on the list when we see in a second, just because that'll mean if you can keep those 3 things alive, that's going to be a guaranteed 15 points. And as I've already talked about, you're going to be dropping a lot of points on these secondaries for the Necron player, specifically if the Space Marines decide to play it cagey, which means that getting that 15 points could be make or break.
Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be very, very, very important in this setup. So, Necron's command phase. I wonder what we think we're going to see the Necron force do. We do have this unit of Praetorians who can pop out. They're going to, I think, be looking for a charge. You could potentially see the Praetorians and the Lich Guard make some moves this turn. Don't forget, we've got Veil of Darkness available for this unit of Lich Guard down here. We've also got, he's not too bad himself. He's not loud. He doesn't like to talk about it too much. You know, some people say that he doesn't even mention it, but the Silent King's not too bad in a fight. So we might see him.
He's very good.
Yeah, so we might see him pop out and get involved. Now, on the primary, Necron's not done too bad. They've scored 10 points, because in this one you only need to hold 2. So 5 points for holding 1, 10 points for holding 2. Effectively, and then but he just hasn't held more. That's going to be the important point. He hasn't held more, so he doesn't get that 5 points bonus swing. But he's not he's not hammered. He's not hammered at the moment on the primary. He's still, if the game goes like this all way, he's going to get 40 points for his primary. So that's not too bad ultimately. Oh, there we go. The Praetorian there, they are out. Movement 10. Really quite fast, actually.
Yeah, this is the turn where I feel like Dave's realised that he has to go for it, otherwise he's just going to get choked out for 2 points here. He's picked up on that one. So we've already seen the Catacomb Command Barge on the top side there. It's moved around. It looks like it's going to try and shoot the Incursor. What a brave guy. While it then goes to charge the Incursors on the bottom left side as well to try and remove some of them. But that's probably going to end up getting taken out unless it makes that charge. If it makes that charge, it can hide inside there, and now suddenly this Leviathan has to Benny Hill it all the way around the ruin, and then the Catacomb Command Barge just drops over the other side anyway. So that's going to be the play from that guy. He needs to basically just pass all of those averages, and then maybe you've got something that's going to work.
This doesn't look terrible. This does not look terrible for the Necrons in this situation. Catacomb Command Barge, I think he hasn't gone... Catacomb Command Barge moved? Yeah, that's as far as he's gone. So he might be able to get into these Incursors as well, into this back. That puts some pressure on the objective, although that Leviathan Dreadnought then is going to walk around and punch its face in. I think. Potentially. But let's put some pressure onto this singular back objective, which, as much as the Necrons have lost 1 unit over here, they don't have anything... There's nothing threatening the objective. There's just like... that. there's no one pushing them off that objective. Very much like this unit of Immortals here, and very much like these Crypto Thralls, they're holding those two side objectives.
Yeah.
And really, the Dreadnoughts are going to have to go quite far to even get involved in threatening those objectives, ultimately.
Yeah. I mean, realistically, you can look at the Necrons getting about 40 points on the primary here. I don't think they'll get any more just because it's one of those where they're going to have to push Marines off. Now, if you are Dave, it's not impossible to be able to do that, but at the same time, it's going to be a hard ask for these Marines to start pushing these Necrons to start pushing these Marines off of these side objectives here and trying to max that secondary, much less sitting on top of those objectives for an entire turn into this Marine list we've already said is very, very good on the counter charge with all of these Dreadnoughts, with all of these big beefy attacks and lots of individual shots from them as well, which is why I'd kind of even like to see the Flamers. I mean, I do like the Flamers under the Leviathans, but then we have the Grav Flux as well. That's still pretty decent. But the Flamers also add to that counter charge kind of element that you can take on these Marines lists. So it's not even a case, though, that if you say it's not looking too bad, I mean, realistically, if you're talking about it from the perspective of the primary, realistically, no, it doesn't necessarily have to look too bad for the Necrons. You can just sit on those two objectives and go for it. But Dave has recognized that those secondary points are going to go horribly in favor of that Marine army. So now he needs to try and force the element. He needs to take some of those points off of the Marines for things like while we stand, while we fight, raise the banners high, or even just push the line of engagement up to a point where engaging all fronts is not a realistic achievement, and then try and take some of those primary points off the Marines to try and even out this game.
So I think we've seen the Lich Guard move and not deep strike, which is useful because they're going to be able to go through this breachable terrain. Both the terrain they're hiding behind and this terrain here means they're going to be able to charge on here. So the two dedicated combat units that you've got available to Dave, both in the Praetorian and there we go. Here's the big plays. Everything's out. We're going in. This is good. This is nice. He's bringing everything forward. So at least it's going to be a smash. There's lots happening. This unit here, big unit of Lich Guard, they are going to smash that single incursor to pieces. Don't forget the aura. Right. Don't forget the aura of reroll charges coming out of the Technomancer as well. Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot available. Go on.
I'm gonna take a bet with you here, Rob. Are you ready?
Yeah.
These guys are going to fail this charge.
So are you by the Lich Guard? Do you think the Lich Guard are going to fail the charge?
The Lich Guard are going to fail the charge on Matt Incursor.
Okay. All right. It's not. Right. Okay. Well, let's see how that works out. What does Twitch chat think? That's a real question.
Specifically, they're not going to make that charge successfully on Matt Incursor. Okay. That's what's going to happen. All right. Okay. I'm calling it now. It's going to happen.
Okay. Well then, but then we've also got the Praetorians and the Scarab Swarms as well. I don't think looking at the board, although new boards do confuse me a tad. I don't think the Silent King necessarily has got the potential to charge the incursors as well, but that would be a big shift up the board. I don't think he wants to do that because I don't think he wants the Leviathan Dreads to get involved in fighting him. But there's the potential that he uses charge phase. I've always described as another movement phase. If you got the option to do it and it works well for you, you should take it. But you're right,
especially now Overwatch is the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially now, that's another thing. Now, we could talk a little bit about the Veil of Darkness. Now, he could still Veil of Darkness later on, but I feel like he has to make this play now because you've only killed one squad of Incursors in the first turn. It means that in turn 3, there is going to be the ability for Callum to push some Incursors up and just say, well, you're not going to hit like a big portion of my board because I've still got Incursors left when you want to deep strike. That said, we are just seeing him go straight for it. And now, as I talked about a minute ago, we were talking about how these Leviathans might not have enough space on that right-hand side and where there is the possibility of these Necrons dropping down and going for the charge. So what I think Dave's going to do here is he should drop down this one squad of warriors and leave the flayed ones off the board because that means you've got room to punish it elsewhere. These warriors are going to drop down. I'm going to try and charge these Leviathan Dreadnoughts. Try and tag them up.
Okay. All right. Interesting. What does everyone in the Twitch chat think? That's my question for everyone today, and I hope everyone's enjoying it as well. Will Dockerell seems very happy, and everyone else seems to be keen for this match. A lot of people generally impressed by the Dreadnoughts, but the Dreadnoughts haven't done loads so far. Oh, look what's coming on the board there, Tom. Some Necron warriors.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, and
don't forget this dude.
Don't forget good. And what about the flayed ones?
Leave them off. Leave them off.
Leave them off.
Leave them off. Like, look at this. So look at all these rings that have now been developed on the board. Those are the 9-inch rings 100% to see where Dave can drop those units down. It is not worth dropping down on this left-hand side right now. You've got too much restriction coming from the form of those incursors. But if you can drop these Necron Warriors down and charge like Leviathan, you are going to give yourself a real chance on this bottom side of keeping some units alive. Those Leviathans, they have high-quality shots, but they don't have many. They have high-quality attacks, but they don't have many. You've got 15 Necron Warriors there, and you are absolutely going to make sure that you can get the full use of reanimation protocols in that close combat. The Overwatch isn't going to do too much, although the Iron Hands can Overwatch on 4+, but still 2d3 attacks
Only a
on
4.
the board, 6 attacks. Only on a 4. I know, it's awful, isn't it? So 6 attacks from the Grav Flux. You've then got the Volkites on there as well, which are still winning on 3s, no AP, so you should be able to web them quite a bit. And then you've got 5 attacks with your Siege Claw. So realistically, those Necron Warriors are going to be able to sit in that combat for at least a turn, and you are going to force that Leviathan to shoot at you, and there's no guarantee it kills them either.
Well,
so that
Tom,
means you're going to get a lot of space on that bottom side.
So talking about this, we saw the unit of Lichguard move up. We thought we were going to see it charge through the terrain, but we did not. We did not. Instead, we saw the Veil of Darkness go off. That's based from this character here, the Technomancer. We've also got a re-rollable charge aura coming out of the Technomancer, which is quite important. And he's also got, because of the sub-faction they're playing in, which is Sautech, they are, or the detachment this one's in, that's going to be +1 to that charge as well. So it's an 8-inch re-rollable charge. They've got those hyperphase swords. They've got a 4-up invulnerable save. The Technomancer, they protect the Technomancer. They won't be able to target the Technomancer because of the Lich Guard. But there is a phenomenal amount of firepower in their way, ultimately.
Okay, so if he's going for that back left corner with the incursors, I absolutely hate it. And that is based on the assumption that those incursors are outside of 1 inch away from the backside of the wall, but close enough to the wall that the Lich Guard can't place themselves. So basically what that means is it's impossible to place the models in a way in which they are within 1 inch of a model for the purposes of charging, right? Now, what they could be doing is they could be going for these Redemptors.
Pin them in, lock the output, potentially.
You hit one Redemptor and the rest of Redemptors just turn around and like hose you. I feel like you need to hit multiple at the same time. And when you're going like this, it's so hard to get in there. Now, maybe you try and charge the Leviathan on the bottom side.
Maybe they go for the Leviathan. Maybe they go for the Leviathan, lock it up. Also, look, he's out there, like, not too far away as well. The Tech Marine is also available in that. If they can get the right, if they can pile in and then consolidate around the Tech Marine might not be able to get out of that fight, meaning all the Redemptors have to come over and deal with this. And what's really important is that is a lot of firepower targeted in this very small portion of the board, leaving the Praetorians, leaving the Warriors, and leaving the Silent King to deal with this other half of the board. So effectively, peel them off. Peel these 3 away from this half of the board, deal with these 2 Dreadnoughts, and then he's maybe pivoted a flank, potentially.
I just loved watching these guys measure the range from that Catacomb command barge into that incursor with 1 wound in the middle. Because I called like half an hour ago about the voltaic staff shooting him in the face. Okay, and here it comes.
Here it comes. It's one incursor. We are in the shooting phase now. Right, do you want to let us know what might be being shot at him with?
So we've got the voltaic staff. It's an assault 4 weapon, which is hitting on 2 Catacomb command barge, and then every 6 that you get to hit is an extra hit, and then it's also, I believe, strength 6, AP -2, AP -2, damage 2. I just get my notes up here so I can get the specifics of it. It's AP -2, damage 2, strength 6. So basically, you need freeze to wound. There's a lot of repeat rolling going on here. I think he's wounded successfully 2 times, so as if he feel no pain. So that means that incursor is now gone, which means that they did not successfully make a charge into that guy, which means I won my bet. Thank you very much.
You win. You win.
Now, I do want to ask you, Rob, very specifically. These Lich Guard in the center. If you were in Dave's position, what would you be looking to charge? What do you think you'd go for?
So, if you're asking me right now, with the Lich Guard,
yes,
with the Lich Guard, well, he's obviously moved there with the plan. The Incursors.
What would you go for?
I feel like the Incursors maybe are the right decision. I feel it's not the Redemptors. I feel like something is gonna. What I want to do is shift into the middle of the board so that he can bring his firepower to bear into the middle and then proceed to move over onto the left. I would like to threaten and extend to the far right of the board as I'm looking at it, so that he has to bring his center power over into the right, leaving me a hope of dealing with everything on the left. Not really certain that that's correct. So probably I'd try and go into either the Incursors or the Dreadnoughts. I wouldn't go into the Redemptors. Basically, I'd go into the Leviathan or the Incursors.
I think ideally you'd want to go into the Incursors, but I am operating under the assumption right now that they are a distance away from the ruin that makes them unchargeable through that ruin, which means that I feel like if he's going to go for, assuming that's true, placing them as he has, I feel like is a difficult charge to make, because you now got to go all the way around the outside of a ruin. If you were going to do that, you'd probably move the Catacomb Command Barge centrally and then the Lich Guard over towards the right-hand side. Whereas we've got it the other way around right now.
But he punches out. If he does take out the Incursors, because this is breachable, right? This should be scalable and breachable.
Yeah, you still need to be able to place your model within an inch of the model that you're fighting, right?
Yeah, it's true. And maybe he can't. Maybe he can't. But I would argue what I would want to do is make it so that I'm blocking line of sight to the Lich Guard. Yeah,
absolutely.
So everything has to come across, and it can't. And then if it doesn't, and it just leaves me, then that objective's definitely mine. Which means this whole right hand flank is now in Necron territory. So we're into the shooting phase, though. We've already lost that.
Sorry, you carry on.
It's okay. We've lost the important Incursor.
Yep. That's gone down. We've then got the Silent King to shoot. I think he's going to have.
Well, he's shooting now. The Menreers are shooting it into the Redemptor. I'm pretty certain.
So I don't think we're going to get a charge on that then, because if you're shooting it, it's under the assumption that you're probably going to try and kill it, right? Although I don't think that's necessarily realistic. That said, I want to go very quickly back to these Lich Guard, and if they'd swap place with his Catacomb Command Barge, because if you make this charge into these Incursors, you don't just take this Leviathan out for the purposes of shooting. You take it out completely. Look at the size of this Leviathan's base, and then look at the gap between the wall and the edge of the table. It can't fit through it. It has to walk all the way around.
All the way around.
And then
even when it does go round,
run out.
And then even if it does go round, there's still obviously the Catacomb Command Barge who are there. Is available. He could potentially. I don't think he could charge to block because I think he would just get eaten by that siege drill claw. But there's still potential.
You don't even need to. You just walk out the other side of a ruin and make him walk back round again. Like, you can't do anything. It doesn't matter what that point. He's completely taken out of the game.
So just for everyone at home, real quick, just to make you understand, there's keywords on this terrain effectively, and so a vehicle like you're seeing here or a monster wouldn't be able to walk through these walls. Now, when I say this next thing, these infantry can walk through the walls. I know that sounds weird. That they can walk through the walls, but effectively there's the idea that there's a hole in there that they kind of scramble through, or there's a window or a door that they kick in, even though not modelled. So they are breachable effectively, meaning infantry are able to push through them as long as there's nothing on the other side effectively stopping them. So they're kind of not there for infantry. You have to kind of give it like a bit of imagination, but effectively. What would happen then is that unit could be on this side, and then the Leviathan has to run all the way around. Now, that's really meant to give a bit of a boost to the infantry so that they can walk across boards without just getting murdered for no particular reason. But
I mean, the best you can do here is you can stick round your Lego arms round the side of this road and shoot them, but you can't actually charge them with this Leviathan.
No. So we've just had the shooting phase. Nick, did we get anything out of the shooting phase from the Silent King? Because I don't think we've done so.
No. Once again, Silent King flattering to deceive over here. It's not necessarily doing too much work, which means that bring it down. Maybe we could start to reduce it to 3 or 6 points secured, which is concerning considering you're not going to get anything to surround them. That could be rather tricky.
So we seeing. I think I lost what was happening there. I think it was we were shooting from the Praetorians. Oh, so the Silent King has done 4 damage into this first Leviathan Dreadnought, and then the Praetorians have done 1 more into that. So taking them down from 14 wounds down to 9. We've still got the Necron Warriors to shoot. Into this unit as well.
That's what we like to see, mate. Yes. So those are all AP -1 hits. So those are 3 up saves for the Leviathan that are going to come in. They are all passed. You are getting nothing on me, son.
They're also damage 1. So you aren't able to reduce the damage of those by any more. It's a hot topic at the moment, Tom. It's a hot topic, this damage 1. We've seen it in this list. We've seen it in this list and the Necron list. I think it's, as much as it's a change, the Death Guard coming up, I still think a positive change. And very strong for that particular army, depending on points.
Yeah, I mean, discouraging people from taking damage to weaponry, I mean, it's never going to cause any issues in a meta that's already dominated by Marines, is it?
Well, I mean, the point it's a nice meta turnaround, I think. So you have to spec for Marines, because which is your 2 wound until heavy intercessors come out /3 wound units, which really does mean that those Death Guard units, both in the Marines and the Terminators, are stronger because you've put points into making sure there's damage 2, damage 3 in there, and that means the Marines and the Terminator equivalents that they have are more viable thanks to that disgust and resilience. But then it's not everything. I get that it's not everything, but it's a nice
I feel like a lot
pick.
of the problem with that, though, is that a lot of the Marines ignore the damage too anyway, because you're taking things like these Redemptor Dreadnoughts. Like, this is the second list I've seen in this event alone that built around Redemptor Dreadnoughts. So now you're discouraged from taking the thing that actually does quite well into the other Marine lists, and so you just end up with this weird flip-flop of, even if you take a list that's geared for Marines, 50% of the Marine lists you hit, you won't be able to deal with it.
Well, let's come back to that point, and have a talk about this later, because we are into the charge phase. The Catacomb Command Barge has made a charge and has got into the Incursors. But the big question is, we'll hear from our table boss, if the Lich Guard to charge and who they chose to charge. Who did they choose to go after? That's the real question. It's going to be...
I think we're doing the Necron Warriors first. We're leaving the Lich Guard to last because they like blue balling us, but that's about it.
Oh, Silent King next. I told you he was going to go for the long bomb charge into the Incursors. I told you it was coming, but he did fail it. He did fail it, but I told you it might be coming.
Yeah.
That's
I respect it. I'm not sure it was realistic, but I definitely respect it. Yes. And then it looks like we're going for things like the Scarabs and
the Necron Warriors are going into the Leviathan Dreadnought now. So that's a 9-inch charge they're going to need. 8-inch charge, obviously, because they're so tech. But they haven't pulled it off. They've just rolled a 6.
They're a Novok.
Or Novok, sorry. Yes.
There it is. There's the 9-inch charge. They are straight in there.
So they've re-rolled. They've re-rolled, punched in there. The Leviathan Dreadnought, while brilliant for taking out vehicles, monsters, and medium infantry, like Custodians, etc., not particularly... And multi-wound models is really what I'm talking about. Not that great about taking out those Necron Warriors, because they're not going to have the volume to take out all of them. So they're going to pin them in at least, or make it that he's going to need to fall back. And so he won't be... But he is a vehicle, so he can shoot into combat now.
He can, but at the same time, you don't have too many shots coming from this vehicle, and it's only him that can shoot into them. So what you'd realistically be wanting to do here is, if you're a Necron player, is pile in these Necron Warriors to get around that backhand side and really force those TCP to come out so this Leviathan can then fall out. And even then, I believe with that stratagem, if you roll a 1, the thing dies, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, so he's going to be when he shoots into combat, he's going to be at another -1 to hit. So that Leviathan Dreadnought, which previously always used to be hitting on 2s, now will be hitting on 4s. I mean, it'll definitely be eventually able to deal with the Necron Warrior squad, but it's all about timing, right, and making sure it's get. Now, this Praetorian charge is very, very important. The Scarab's obviously looking to go into the Incursors, or maybe... and get into the back of them, get out of the way of the Praetorians. But those Praetorians want to go in, smash those Incursors off, and then, looking towards the end of this turn, obviously, depending on what happens with those Lich Guard, it's looking pretty good on the primaries for the Necrons for at least turn 2. Turn 3, obviously, there's lots of plays still to make, but he's pushed off both of those centre objectives, so there's only going to be 10 points probably getting scored for the Space Marines, for these Iron Hands. However, that is as long as the Lich Guard don't get involved in that Incursor unit. If they do get involved in that Cursor unit, it's going to go down to 5, and then the Marines are going to have to push off a lot of Necrons in a lot of different places, to start drawing those primary points back. And they're pushing on getting some good secondaries as well. So it's a strong move, and it's a good push. And I think absolutely everything that Dave has done is right. He's waited for those Dreadnoughts to come close enough that he can engage with them on his terms and counterpunch and just put so many threats. Also, just waited till turn 2. Those Warriors could come down, tie a unit up. So he just waited so that everything could engage where he wanted it to engage.
I mean, this was a turn early as well. You could have dropped on turn 3 too. And we were talking a little bit about this in the Marine turn, how there are a couple of gaps left here and there that maybe the Necrons could exploit. And the more you look at this, the more you have to think that this is a little bit of a blunder from Callum here. Because
Wow.
now you've got a bit of a problem coming in here. If these Lich Guard are able to make this charge on the Incursors, assuming that the Incursors did not place themselves properly around this ruin, you have now got an issue. How are you going to clear all this stuff from this right-hand side? How are you going to clear all this stuff from this left-hand side behind this ruin? You're going to have to commit these Redemptors somewhere, and now are they going to go left or are they going to go right?
Well, do you know where they're going to go? Right into the Lich Guard that are trying to charge them. So
I mean, other Lich Guard trying to charge the Redemptors.
Yeah, they are. The Lich Guard are attempting to charge the Redemptors, which is not what... and the so then the Iron Hands are overwatching, and they're using their stratagem to overwatch on fours.
Good call. Good call. Hey, Rob, did you know if you had Nemesis Zandrak, you could stop this from happening?
I did not know that.
Yeah, he can stop stratagems. I would recommend a Nemesis Zandrak with a Vargard Oberon. They're even the same dynasty as the Silent King. You're welcome.
Oh, perfect. Okay, well, I mean, the Silent King 450 points is still there, but anyway, this is what we're seeing right now. This charge with the counter shots coming back into the Necron Warriors, pretty devastating ultimately, and we'll see.
I mean, I don't know what's specifically being shot, but I can see the number of ones being rolled is very high. So I'm assuming it's not going particularly well, especially considering the 2 shooting phases that have preceded it into the Lich Guard have not been particularly strong.
No wounds.
Like any.
No wounds. Not any wounds. So that was 2 CP spent on producing 0 results.
Something about that sync we were talking about earlier, Rob, with the CP.
And the Lich Guard made it. The Lich Guard have made it.
Oh, man.
I didn't want them to either. That's not where I think that they should be, ultimately.
So here's what's going to happen. Here's my prediction, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Next turn, all these Redemptors are going to spend their turn killing these Lich Guard. Okay? That's what's going to happen. I think these Incursors will live through the Catacomb Command Barge, and I think all the stuff on my right will live through these Necron Warriors. We then end up in a situation where the Necrons are going to be sticking around for 2 turns. Maybe they actually even pick up a primary point here. If you leave this Lich Guard on this objective, you might get a 15 on the primary at some point. But then, once all these Lich Guard go down to these Redemptors, then the Redemptors are free to roam the wilderness and kill as they please. The win condition now for the Necrons is these Lich Guard have to live through this turn and through Callum's next Marine turn. If they can do that, maybe now you're talking about scoring something like one of these surround them points. Maybe you're talking about getting big points up on that Purge of Vermin. If they can do that, maybe there's a way in for the Necrons here.
Well, so as you can see, he's used the charge move, which I've always described. I don't know, keep up with everyone. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Charge phase is another movement phase. He's used that to grab a model and make sure he's within range of that center objective as well. Now, that isn't going to be overly useful if all the Lich Guard are dead. It's an obvious answer.
It is true.
It's true. But if they're not, so he looks like he's made the charge move just to cap the objective, really.
Cap the objective, stay in range of the Technomancer to keep it alive, and tag that Redemptor up.
Exactly. So it's not an output play. He's not looking to murder this Redemptor here. He's looking to do a bunch of jobs here, like you said, protect the Technomancer, score the objective, tag up the Redemptor. And look, at the end of the day, this Incursor squad is also engaged in combat as well with this Catacomb Command Barge, and ultimately, probably the Catacomb Command Barge wins this over a few turns, which means this Leviathan Dreadnought needs to come around and help deal with this situation and this objective, which it can do it via going via the Lich Guard, which is useful for it. But ultimately, it's some nice threat, and so there's a lot for the Iron Hands to deal with now. They've got to deal with the Praetorians, the Warriors, and the Lich Guard. So we're in the meat of it now, and there's lots to unpack.
Yeah. Absolutely, and there's a couple of things we should note as well. Firstly, we haven't even talked about the protocols, which shows you how valuable those things are. But also, I want to talk about the Technomancer, because the Technomancer has an additional trait. It's the Cryptic Arcana, Cortical Subjugator Scarabs, which is once per game, a unit within 6 inches of him can heroically intervene. So I want to see Callum. We've already seen that he did the Incursors properly on that left-hand side to make sure those Lich Guard wouldn't be able to charge into that unit. But I want to see Callum remember that and keep eyes on that and ask the right questions about how these Lich Guard can get into combat, so that when he does fall out with this Redemptor, if he chooses to and just not just shoots it in the face, then he stays outside of that 3 inches, so his Lich Guard can't really intervene on him, because that could cause some real issues.
Okay, yeah. These combats now, we've seen the Catcoon Command Barge has piled in, started to attack here into these. All these charging units will be going first and activating, so there's not enough CP left for the Marines to do anything or interrupt anywhere. So these Incursors, they're going to be failing in this fight versus these Praetorians as well. The Scarabs are going in. I don't imagine the Warriors are going to do much.
We don't need to, we've got too many bodies!
Yeah, so Scarabs are now currently activating into the unit of Incursors. That's what we're seeing here. And the Scarabs did kill one. Unfortunately, it does seem like the Catcoon Command Barge didn't kill any of the Incursors on this back objective.
Well, at least I was right on that one, so I'll take it.
Oh, no, he did kill 1.5. No.
Oh, wow. How powerful.
He killed 1.5. I mean, he wins that fight over time, I think.
Over time, certainly. But when you've got, 3 turns left in the game, I don't know how quickly you're allowed to do that.
As fast as possible, I think.
Yeah.
At least now we're going to see what is the terror of this turn, effectively. Of these Dreadnoughts. They're all going to be able to bring themselves to bear this next turn. And then the real question is has Dave set a trap? These Dreadnoughts, when they do move into the centre to try and maybe deal with these Praetorians who don't have an invulnerable save, they then, you've got counter charges coming in from the Silent King, potentially, to block up. What's nice, or very, very good, effectively, for the Necron player, is their 2 back objectives have no threats. There's still a unit of 9 flayers off the board, but there's no one threatening these 2 back objectives for the Necrons. So that's a real positive. That's 10 VP a turn. Their primaries, they're already gonna pretty much, I feel I can guarantee they're gonna pop out 40 points at the end of the game on the primary, which means they only need 1 turn of scoring more. Only 1 turn, and they've maxed that, and they've got that 45, and that's really, really good. Whereas the Marine player is under pressure. Callum is under pressure to make sure that he doesn't lose one of his back 2 objectives, which is quite key, really. And there's a lot of threats in his way.
Well, the reason why he's so pressured to not lose his objectives isn't because of the primary, it's because of the surround them, right? Surround them is the secondary that currently is a really big swing. If Dave is able to permanently push Callum off one of his objectives, that is basically a 15-point swing. Because you're now able to get those turns in, take those surround them points, and then cap that secondary objective.
Could you just remind us of surround them completely,
Of course,
please?
Absolutely fine. So in your command phase, if you're on both of your objectives and one of your opponents, you get 4 VP. If you are on both of your opponents, you instead get 8 VP. And you score that in your command phase or as the game ends. And as you're going second as Necrons, you basically get a chance to jump on those and get those points because your opponent won't have time to react between you jumping on them and the game ending. So that could be a big, big swing in points because, as we've been saying, this game is probably going to come down to those secondaries. Another one of those swings I want to see is while we stand, while we fight. If the Silent King is able to cut down a couple of these Dreadnoughts, these Leviathan Dreadnoughts, those are 5 points a pop for every single one he kills, in addition to the 3 points you're going to be getting for Bring It Down. So every single Leviathan Dreadnought that goes down is an 8-point swing in this game on the secondaries. So that is going to be massive. One of the things I wanted to talk about before we talked about the secondaries was actually the value of the Feel No Pain here, because we're talking about this Catacomb Command Barge going into these Incursors on the bottom left to try and pressure that objective, try and get towards those surround them points. But because of that Feel No Pain, it really mitigates that damage too a lot. So the Lord in there is armed with a Voltaic Staff, which is flat damage too. And as the Marines are damaged too, then you're going to be cutting through them, right? But if you've got your DPR, you roll 2 dice. If either one of them is a 6, you're effectively saving a Marine bat and basically wasting an attack.
Yeah. It's very effective. It's very effective, which is. So we're just talking about the combats here. Like we talked about, the Praetorians smoked those Incursors, as you would hope that they would do. They absolutely should. However, a lot of wounds going in from the Lich Guard into the Redemptor, but it sounds like you've made a load of saves as well.
Right.
So didn't do as well as you would hope ultimately there. Their plan, or Dave's plan, at no point really, as you can see, was to attack here. So, I was like, we just had a new dreadnought appear.
No, that's fine. So we're just testing something there. So I just want to talk about this Necron Warrior pylon a little bit here. So what Dave is trying to do is he is trying to pile the Necron Warriors across so that the Leviathan Dreadnoughts physically can't move between the Ruin and the Necron Warriors. Now, what I also want to see him do is pile across to a point where this Leviathan can't actually fall out. Now, I believe that between the two of these Necron Warriors here, it actually can't pile out without spending 2 CP as it stands, because you don't need to go all the way around. You just need to go enough, far enough around that you can't fit the full diameter of that base between the two Necron Warriors, and I believe that's what's happened here. So that Leviathan Dreadnought is now stuck in that combat without spending 2 CP.
Ooh, that's useful. Very, very.
It is useful. Yeah.
Very useful.
Now,
now,
the
there's warriors
significance of that isn't just that Leviathan Dreadnought is now stuck in a combat because the Leviathan Dreadnought here can still shoot. But what it does mean is because you're in a combat, your other units can't shoot those 15 Necron Warriors. So it does mean that more bullets are going to be committed toward these Track Praetorians and these Scarabs over here, most likely, potentially on these Lich Guard as well, because you'd be tempted to fall out of this 11 wound Redemptor so your entire army can go into them. But as it stands, you're just denying your opponent options.
Yeah, lots of the army is pinned in now. Lots of the Iron Hands are pinned in. They're up against it. They're rolling through combats. You need a lot of these units need to try and push off, and there is a lot of output. But I got to say that I'm really, really impressed with Dave. Dave's put a lot of pressure in the right places and made it so that he's not going to be able to counterpunch particularly well. I mean, he's super happy with some of those 8-inch charges from Deep Strike. He's not unhappy that they got in at all. Otherwise, those warriors just would have been stood out, facing some pretty significant threats. I think also having the warriors protect the Praetorians is really, really useful, which means after the warriors have gone, the Praetorians are taking the next turn again into those dreadnoughts and clearing that left. I am worried, though, this linchpin unit... I'm worried about this linchpin unit of Lich Guard, though. The Lynch Guard? Let's call them that.
Oh dear, don't call them that, please.
I'm calling them the Lynch Guard. That works. That works. Twitch chat, help me out. How are you feeling?
No. I'm not feeling that one, Rob. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest with you on that one, matey. Please don't call them that. But as we were saying earlier,
but the Lynch Guard are important. That's all I'm going to say. They're important because they're holding up a significant portion of the board. And this, and if this Leviathan Dreadnought and these other two Redemptors do decide to come into the Lynch Guard, then yes, they push into the center here, but then they're losing potentially their back objective. Now, the Master of the Forge, Tom, or the Primaris Tempmarine, potentially could come around and try and deal some output into the Catacomb Command Barge. Not too bad in a fight. Not too shabby. At the end of the day, it's a Space Marine hero. Yeah, he's got the Omnissiah Axe, which is damage 2. So he could potentially be doing some work. And they could just split off, send the Dreads forward, and send the character to the side. What do you think?
I mean, on this left-hand side, I feel like the play is just move these and curses out and then just shoot it in the face with a Leviathan Dreadnought. Now, you're not guaranteed to kill it. In fact, you're not even likely to kill it, but you are reducing the number of turns in which it can fight these and curses, and thus maximizing the number of turns in which character is going to be alive. Now, you could just leave this Redemptor Dreadnought into combat with these Lich Guard, because if you do that, that also means that the Lich Guard aren't able to then go and charge the curses, buying you some more time on that objective and denying specifically and very importantly Dave time and force around them. So maybe that's to play just to be a bit more conservative and then just try and blow away a lot of these warriors on the other side. But I feel like these Redemptors are going to have a hard time actually even targeting anything but Thomas' bottom side objective in the centre with the Triad Praetorians and the Scarabs.
There's a lot happening, a lot of combat. So the warriors did 1 wound into that Leviathan Dreadnought. It's down to 7 of its original 14. And
they did a wound, my word.
They did a wound. There's big news in. Everyone's happy with that.
Is big news.
But the Warriors have started to crumble in return. They've started to take some damage as well there. Again, the Praetorians are safe. And we just got to see the Redemptor and also the Incursors strike back into the Catacomb Command Barge. And then we are going to be into the Marines' turn. Lots to unpack here. And like Dude Audacia in the chat, big love to you. A little bit closer than we initially thought, right? There's lots of... It's really, really fun. In the swingbacks, by the way, Necrons they lost one warrior only, and we only lost one Lich Guard, which is important because that is 9 of those Lich Guard. They are vital in this setup. So I'm just going to make sure I update the scores. We're going to go into the Marine turn 1. Command phase will be fairly short, but then that movement phase, there we go. One of the Dreadnoughts is already piling out, as you can see. I'm just going to make sure I get the scores updated here. So they've scored 10 this turn.
It's pretty beefy. That's not bad at all. I mean, we always talked about this game and how it was going to go. We always felt like the primaries were going to be close. Now, maybe the primaries are going to be so close that they're actually going to be a draw, with the Necrons able to take a I hold more than you point for their troubles in the middle of this game as well. But we were always saying it's going to come down to these secondary points. Can the Marines defend the secondary points of while we stand, bring it down and surround them? Or are the Necrons going to be able to push through and start taking things out of that cell linking?
I'm not sure.
I feel like the answer is no. I feel like Marines have still got this. My confidence is still in the Marines.
You're still in for the Marines?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely looking a lot closer than I thought it would, but I also didn't think that Callum would just run it down and just give his Leviathan over for free to be tagged. But there we are.
There we go. Well, I mean, lessons to be learned. Like ultimately,
absolutely.
With COVID out there in the world, and most of the countries that I know of, including Scotland in the UK, there hasn't been loads of opportunity to play a considerable amount of practice 40k. So you're definitely seeing, I think, a lot of the TTS community, like this is the second Scottish League, I think, or maybe the third one. This is round 2, by the way. These two players both won their matches before. Oh, okay. The fourth one of 9th edition. Callum, who's playing the Marines, he beat Genestealer Colts in his first round, which he felt was a bit of a mismatch and a bit of a whitewash for him. Dave played up against Eldar, so that's the Necrons played up against Eldar as well. So TTS really being like a great opportunity for people to practice stuff in a non-COVID world, ultimately. But people still learning it. It's not 100% new skill set, but it definitely requires some nuance and relearning to a degree, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I always struggle with learning these new additions, but Tabletop Simulator has been really useful in an environment where COVID is so important, right? We do see these incursions on the bottom side moving towards this combat, so it looks like they'll be charging for Necron Warriors. As we said, the durability of these Necron Warriors is in their numbers. And that looks like going to be, the number of attacks the Incurses get is decent. Plus, you've got a couple of shots you can ping off into these Triad Praetorians too. I feel like you definitely need to start clearing these warriors out there, because otherwise you're just going to get overwhelmed on this side with all the amount of stuff there. Plus, I'm interested to see how they're going to deal with the Lich Guard over here, because you're either going to leave one guy in, have him shoot a bunch and then punch, or you're going to take him out, shoot with 2 guys, and punch with those 2 guys, but then the other Redemptor can't even shoot anything at all. But it looks like they're going for the latter option. They're going to move the Redemptor out there. It's got 11 wounds left. And then the other 2 Redemptors are going to move forward, have a shoot, have a punch, and then see if it can clear that entire squad.
So some questions coming in the chat here. Yavin Bay says, have there been people reskinning models to stimulate painted armies on TTS? That does kind of make sense, I think. I mean, the fact that a brand new model here in the Silent King is so lovingly recreated on TTS, I think is excellent, obviously. However, I wouldn't be surprised to ever go to a regular tournament and see a bunch of blue Iron Hands. It wouldn't be it would not be beyond I'd be like, yeah, cool, man, whatever. I don't think the colour is in any way an indication, Tom, of what Marine you're playing. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter at this point. I've seen so many differently painted Marine lists. Just because it's blue doesn't mean it has to be Ultramarines. I mean, the galaxy is full of trillions of souls, man. Come on.
Yeah, trillions. They're the pretend Iron Hand successor chapter Ultramarine Asarius or something like that. That works for me.
It works, right? Just use a slightly different shade. Use a baby boy blue shade of blue. It'll be fine. Use whatever whatever you want.
So let's look at this. Let's look at what we've seen. So let's see what's happened. We've seen happen here. The Incursors have piled out. They're getting in. They want to go into those warriors, I'm pretty certain. As you can see, the piling in from the warriors, meaning that the Leviathan Dreadnought can't escape here. And then also the Leviathan Dreadnought, the other Leviathan Dreadnought's part has gone back out. Make sure he's holding on to that objective. All of the Tech Marines are just fixing up the Redemptors now, making sure that they're all back alive.
These are the best engineers I've ever seen, mate.
They are so good.
walking coffin. Mate, we've talked about walking coffins that have Necrons. Look at all these dreadnoughts. What is a dreadnought? It's a walking coffin.
That's all they're doing. They're medics and they're mechanics at the same time. Medicanics. Yeah, that works. And as you can see, the librarian stood in the middle has popped out Psychic Fortress. So all those Redemptors now and those characters 5 up invulnerable save. And it looks like we're going to see this Leviathan Dreadnought is going to go into the Lich Guard as well. Probably trying to blow a hole clear so that you can get into the Technomancer. Would you agree with that, Tom?
Blowing a hole clear is my favourite thing to do, so I'm looking forward to seeing this one here. We are seeing this Leviathan just stay in there. They're going to have to shoot the Necron Warriors. I would assume that Dave is going to take them off from the side of being curses, but at the same time, I'm not sure you necessarily want to do that. I feel like you take a lot of them off his backside here, so when you reanimate them, you can do it to stick them up. I hate it. He did what I said I was going to do. He was going to do. No. Right. So here's what I was going to go with. When you reanimate within range of some existing dudes, right?
Yeah.
So what you're able to do is you then just push it out and take this objective because your objective is secured. Is this Leviathan over here secured? I don't think it is it?
No.
No. So you just take those dudes out and then you plonk them on this objective. Now, he's still going to do that, and he's taking it from that side, but I don't think you need to take it from that side, because if you leave more there, you're getting more attacks down onto these Incursors when they charge in. Also leave a bit more of a buffer between the Incursors and the Triad Praetorians. So what I'd go for is I'd go for some of the ones that are closest to the Necron deployment zone, and then leave the one that's blocking it, and then just make a massive beefer on this objective here later on.
So as you can see, what's actually happened here, so we're into the shooting phase for the Dreadnoughts, for the Marines, the Iron Hands with all the Dreadnoughts. The Necron Warriors here, as you can see, they've shot some died, then they've reanimated closer to the objective with objectives secured, which is absolutely huge, massive play.
Yeah.
And again, showing the power of that reanimation protocol if you use it well. Now, the other Leviathan Dreadnought is shooting into the Praetorians. They don't have an invulnerable save. You might see a lot of these Praetorians go down.
They need to clear out a lot of these. Like, back to the Necron Warriors, though. The overall idea was good. You got them on the objective, but you could make it more efficient by taking from the back and putting them up front, rather than taking from the side and putting them up front. That way, you end up with more guys close to that objective than you would otherwise.
Yeah, potentially. Like, it's going to be interesting to see what happens when these Incursors clearly are going to charge in and try and duff up some more, and where they decide to put some of these models.
But you can't now take out guys from the side, because if you do, you'll be out of coherence and you'll be causing yourself some mad issues.
Yeah, absolutely. I do wonder if he's not just going to snake more of them onto the over onto the objective effectively.
I feel like you go from
the back. Yeah, I think so.
He's 385 Praetorians down so far as well.
But you are going to unfortunately drag the Leviathan Dreadnought in, or do you always have to stay? You have to stay an inch away with the reanimation. So he could so he's just going to snake around. But then the Leviathan Dreadnought could charge in as well. So probably the Warriors are dead, but we'll see. So we've seen.
I don't know. I feel like they lose a lot of guys, but do they all die? Because morale doesn't work the same as it used to. I feel like you lose a lot of them, but I don't feel like you lose the whole squad here.
Well, and talking about losing the whole squad, Praetorians slowly dying. 5, 6 gone now. There's only 4 left out of that squad, and it's a bit of a shame because they were one of the units that potentially could take out one of these Leviathan Dreadnoughts. In a close swing. But we do have reanimation on these guys.
The problem with them is they are 2 wounds. So basically, what you end up rolling here is you roll 12 dice. So you should get 2 back up here, but that's still 6 guys. And 6 guys to 10 guys is a massive deal, because it's not just about, I've lost less than half a squad. Oh, my word, never mind. He only gets 1 guy back. Okay. But that squad is now far less scary. Like, I can tank 5 guys to the chin. I can't tank 8. 8 is scary. 5 is less scary. I'm not too fussed about that now.
Well, we're seeing now the Incursors are going to try and fire some more pot shots into those Praetorians as well, trying to take them out and off the objective. Now, this is in turn 3. This is Marines' turn 3. They've done pretty well on primary so far. 15 in the first turn, 10 in the second turn, so they're on 25. But it does look like next turn, or depending on what happens with those Warriors over there, that they won't score overly well on the primary the turn after. Whereas it looks like the Necrons are going to score their big 15, having got 10. In turn 2, they're going to get 15 next turn. However, will the Necrons be able to hold on into turns 4 and 5, because it does
yeah.
feel like a hold-on game at this stage. The Incursors we see that were in fight with the Catacomb Command Barge, they haven't left combat. I don't think they have. We'll get they might have, because it's only an inch, isn't it? So it looks like it might be an inch.
The Necron's max primary here, dude. I don't see a way where the Marines can kick them off the primaries for the next 2 turns where they get 10. Because in order for Marines to stop them from getting those primaries, but let's assume that the Necrons get 15 next turn, which they should do. You now have 2 turns to stop the Necron player from scoring 2 objectives in that 5th turn, right? Well, how are you going to do that? You need to get all the way across the board. You don't have anything that ignores line of sight. You're not going to charge through those ruins. Those Necrons are going to max that primary. So I think we're going to see both players max 45 in the primary, and as we say, it's going to come down to those secondaries.
And that's because of these 2 units that I'm highlighting on the board here. A
Absolutely.
unit of Immortals hidden in this line of sight blocking terrain, and over on the right-hand side, the unit of Lich Guard. Again, I'm going to talk about it all day. And actually, the more we talk about and we do coverage, obviously leading up to the WTC, but when COVID's gone and the T-Sports Arena starts hosting all of our events here in person as well, we're going to talk about these terrain maps and how useful, there we go, just get you a top down there, how useful they are for creating such an interesting and dynamic game state. This, as we can see on this right-hand line here, this Catacomb Command Barge has really produced a very interesting game just by its mobility and its ability to
just by existing.
But make sure it can't be shot. Similarly, we've seen these Redemptors be really, really cautious in this kind of very open middle here, and a lot of these fights happening between these kind of centrally, these flank objectives. So this middle has been a no man's land because basically you'll die in it. But also there's been lots of abilities to block off from, so you could be in this kind of zone, block off from the center. So these kind of areas are safe from center fire. So it's all been about this like central avenue of output, which has been really fun. Now, if anyone did move into the middle, they could dominate whole portions of the board. However, that means that you're also available to be shot as well. So it's just really, really good work from the map designers here. Now, it's very, very important, key, in fact, that a lot of people start playing with this volume of terrain, or they play with some sort of standardized set maps, because it changes the shape of everything quite a lot, Tom. What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely it does. Now, I'm just looking at this left-hand side. It looks like some shooting is going to these Lich Guard here. Now, a lot of the Lich Guard that would have been close enough to these Redemptors for them to realistically make a charge. I mean, you could still do it, but this one in the ruin has to go around it now. This one on the right-hand side has to do it too. Leviathan's still there, can have a go. We've already killed 4 Lich Guard over here, and then one of them will get back up later. You're effectively making it very, very difficult for these Lich Guard to... Oh, my word. That's 2 Lich Guard come back from the...
baby. They're only 1 wound, aren't they? Lich Guard are only the 1 wound.
No, they're 2 wounds, aren't they?
I don't think so. I think they're the 1 wound.
Oh, look. They just rolled 8 dice, mate, from 4 dead guys.
They must be the 2 wounds then.
They rolled 5 pluses on those 8 dice, mate. That's impressive.
Yeah,
one
baby.
Off getting 3 back. That was very good. Now, the Leviathan's still to go, but you have been able to now recycle those Lich Guard on the opposite side of the unit, so it's making it very, very hard for those Redemptors to get in. Now, Leviathan's
we've still got shooting, though, to go, Tom. We've still got shooting to go. Redemptor's still to go.
Yeah, but Leviathan's still got to shoot now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and still a Redemptor as well.
Okay, so which Redemptor shot first? Just fair.
We'll double check from the table boss in a moment.
Was it even the Leviathan?
Oh, the first round of shooting was only from the Tech Marine.
Oh, and it just killed 4 guys.
Yeah, there you go.
I feel like those 2 guys getting back up was justified. So that's fine. It looks like this Redemptor on this right-hand side here might be able to sneak a look at this Lich Guard, but that's about it. So I feel like that's one that's going next, and then you get the Leviathan. Now, looking at this left-hand side here, because you've pushed the Leviathan up to the Lich Guard, you've basically said, Incursors, you're on your own at this point. You need to just tank another turn for us. Now, what I would have done if I was Callum is just pull those Incursors out of combat and just not shoot or fight the Catacomb Command Barge at all, and instead deny an assault phase of just hitting things, right? So you could pull it out a couple of inches. I mean, it can still heroically intervene, but you can still make the space over to the bottom side here, although that does mean that you are pulling the Catacomb Command Barge further away from that top side of the ruin where your Leviathan might be able to shoot it, although it also does mean you pull it down towards the bottom side where maybe you can get some shots going off later on, as well as with that assault phase of damage that's going to be coming through. That said, it doesn't look like these Incursors care too much about the damage coming from that Catacomb Command Barge anyway. It only did 3 wounds last turn, so you might as well tank it up. It's a bit of a trade-off there, but personally I would have probably dropped out.
I'd have dropped out. I definitely would have dropped out.
Wait a second, Rob.
Yeah.
Are those redemption?
Hold on. We're just finding out that a Redemptor, the Redemptor with his plasma gun, has shot into the Silent King, killed a Menhir.
2 Menhirs.
Yeah, killed 2, and then 2 has spilled over into the Silent King. So the Silent King had his 2 stone protectors smote in a single turn, and then is now down to 14 out of his 16 wounds. So that's pretty massive as well, because that... Oh, sorry, one was killed last turn. Just one was killed this turn then. But that does mean... That does mean that he has lost some valuable anti-tank as well.
Yeah, so that's going to massively affect the bring it down points that you could potentially be harvesting here for Dave. And that's going to make that secondary all the more difficult. And those Redemptors don't really have a choice of what else to shoot at, so you might as well shoot Sazerac in the face with your big plasmy boys. And if you can
also overcharge, Tom.
Dude, they do flat 3 damage each, mate, and that thing explodes 2d6. So I'm not even fussed about it dying. I just want to see a massive explosion happen in the middle of this board.
Yeah, well, so we've heard that the next Redemptor that you can see at the back here, again shooting into the Silent King, is overcharged. It's got the reroll 1s, or I'm pretty certain, available here. And so potentially we're going to see some... Did we see +1 hit to go on any of the Redemptors? We did. We saw it on 2. We've seen it on 2 of these Redemptors have got +1 to hit here, right? So they're hitting on 2s, they're rerolling 1, so you might see some pretty solid damage going into the gorgeous but quiet Silent King. Yeah.
He will die very quietly, apart from about 2d6 inches.
They need to name more characters like Silent. They need to name more characters like Silent King, like that sort of stuff. Because as a commentator, it gives us so much room, like to say things. It gives us loads.
All that noise he didn't make for that one big boom at the end of the game when he dies. That's all he's doing. Okay. Although that said, looks like some more Lich Guard are going down here, so something's definitely targeting those things. We're now down to 4 at the minute, but we've got a little pile going on the side here that looks like it may be from the shooting ready for those reanimation rolls.
Those are the other shots from the Redemptor, because that single Redemptor is currently firing. Right, he's shooting into Silent King and then shooting into.
So Redemptor is firing some of its shots at the Lich Guard and some at the Silent King. I feel like that's very greedy. I'm not a fan of that. I'd shoot everything at the Lich Guard if I could possibly help it. But you've got one of the.
I think he's very confident. He's very confident with the Leviathan, right?
I mean, sure.
Right there and available.
But at the same time, I feel like you absolutely need to clear that unit to win the game, and you've killed half of it so far. So.
Okay, so Silent King though, no damage from the Redemptor. Redemptor did nothing there, so he's laughing. I think the only thing that's left to shoot potentially is the Leviathan Dreadnought that's here. He's got all of his guns. His nipple guns are available now. Those Volkites, as you can see, they're in close quarter range. You've even got, I think you've got a Flamer or a Melter available inside the Siege Claw, and then he's also got that horrific weapon. Tom, do you know the profile on his main gun?
On whose main gun? Sorry, my friend.
The Leviathan Dreadnought.
The Leviathan Dreadnought. So we're talking about the Grav, what's it, Majobi? Or are we talking
Flux
about
Bombard?
The Grav Flux Bombard. So it's 2d3 shots, 24-inch range, heavy 8, heavy strength 8, AP -3, damage 2.
Perfect for killing Lich Guard.
Very good for killing Lich Guard, especially as they have no DPR. Although that said, the AP3 is a little bit overkill. Also, the Lich Guard are toughness 5, so you're winning on freeze. You're knocking him down to a 4+ invulnerable save, and then the damage 2, which is very, very nice indeed. But then he's also got the big meaty Siege Claw. So you got 4 attack space, then you get an extra attack for the Leviathan Claw, and then you get an extra attack for Bay Marines in the first round of combat.
Yeah, so there's 7 attacks, right? Is that where we're at?
Yeah.
Outrageous. I was
6
like,
attacks. 6
yeah.
attacks, sorry, my mistake.
Oh, isn't it base 5 + 2?
Base 4 +1 for the Leviathan Claw, and then +1 for Marines charging, I believe.
Right. Okay.
So you've got that. That's sitting on freeze base. Then you're getting a +1 to hit for the Majobi that's been casting in. Then you're rerolling 1s because you're within range of that dude, I believe. But I could be wrong on that one. I'm not particularly off of the individual mechanics of making your Dreadnought a pseudo captain. I think he's out of range there, so that should be all right. Then you're hitting on 2s of those. So that's 5 hits. Strength 14, so you're definitely winning on 2s there. So that's average 4 go through. 2 should go through there, and then you're flat damage free. So you should whack in melee 2 Lich Guard with that Leviathan. So you effectively have killed quite a substantial chunk there. You're probably going to either force Dave to spend 2 CP to keep that last 1 guy, or maybe 2 guys if you're lucky with your animations, on the board, or they're going to run away, most likely.
Well, so the shooting that we've seen every weapon has killed a Lich Guard or two, and then we've seen one reanimate.
Okay.
But that is the end of the shooting phase, so which means there are 3 Lich Guard left from that unit. So with a Leviathan Dreadnought charge to come. We're seeing other charges happen. Look, we've seen this unit of Praetorians drop down. Just give you guys a kind of quick overview of what's going on. We saw in the shooting phase, we saw a Menrir die from here, and some wounds finally popped onto the Silent King. We saw half the unit of Praetorians here go down. We saw a few of the warriors here die, but then they reanimated onto the objective at the back here, so that's a real positive for them. And then, of course, the Lynch Guard, this unit of 10 Lynch Guard that we have here, we saw 7 of the 10 go down effectively, dropping them, and it looks like we've seen we've seen the Incursor charge down here into the warriors. Now, those warriors dying is going to be very important. Leviathan went in as well. If they all get wiped, that's going to be really good, because currently they're contesting. And also, I think maybe the Incursors will have charged back and got in range of being able to contest that back objective, but we will see how that works out. And of course, the Redemptor's charged in over here. The Leviathan...
That's a long charge, that is.
Did he charge at the Technomancer? Oh, he declared the Technomancer as well.
What?
So he declared the Technomancer as well. So, because he can activate with the Redemptor, and if the Redemptor does clear out the Lich Guard, he can decide then to go into the Technomancer.
Yeah, I get it, but one, you don't need to kill the bastard, and secondly, you're just elongating your charge for the sake of it. Why do you need to kill him? Why have you done that? All right, whatever. He's made it. And he didn't get punished for that greed. That's perfectly fine. We got away with it. So we've got a massive scrap now going on all sides of the board. We've got the Incursors fighting the Catacomb Command Barge. We've got the Leviathan and the Redemptor fighting the Lich Guard and the Technomancer. We've got some people just messing around in the center. And then on the right-hand side, we've got 2 Leviathans and a squad of Incursors fighting a bunch of Necron warriors. This is absolute carnage.
There's murder everywhere. But the first combat being activated is the Leviathan here going into the Necron warriors, looking to punch them out, clear them off the objective. Now, it's pretty strong. Like, those Lich Guard dying is pretty terrifying. There's not a lot of answers, really, for the Necrons, because they're losing some of their biggest units. 240 points for this Lich Guard unit, 250 points for this unit of Praetorian who's half down now. Obviously the warriors they're rocking in. They're not cheap either. So lots of bodies gone. Silent King's still up, but he's lost his anti-tank. So and ultimately the Marines have lost so far 2 units of 5 Incursors. That's it. There's also been an Immortals unit that was down here, 5-man unit. They got wiped out. So Necrons have spent their CP. They have interrupted with the Lich Guard, I think. Am I hearing that right?
I mean, it's one of those where I was thinking about what do you fight first with? Maybe you fight first with the Redemptor, because the Lich Guard are probably going to do more damage in close combat. But even if the Lich Guard do damage, I mean, they're wounding on 5s, and they're going to take you down a couple of wounds. Plus, as Iron Hands, you count as double the number of wounds to your profile anyway, so you don't really care if you take a couple of wounds. Whereas if these Necron Warriors get lucky, maybe kill an Incursor, you are losing a bunch of attacks there, so you're not going to be able to actually do anything. So I feel like the ordering from Callum here was absolutely spot on.
Okay. All right, that seems fine. So we've also seen the CP spent giving the Warriors an extra... So the Warriors are fighting back. Oh, okay. So it's
for 2 CP?
Yeah. So the Warriors, and they spent the CP for an extra attack as well. So I'm pretty certain they're looking to go into the Incursors, and they do. They take 2 of the Incursors out, which is good, because that's a bunch of all of the things that are there. There's a lot of just general dice being thrown at them from the Incursors, right? So maybe the right call.
3 CP for 2 Incursors, I don't feel like is a great call, unless you're not going to spend the CP anywhere else, and you might as well kill some Incursors.
Keeping the Warriors alive is the
trick. The problem is you've already fought with the Incursors, so you're not actually removing any attacks by doing that.
Oh no, they haven't fought. They haven't fought yet.
Oh wait, so where did
only the Leviathan? The Leviathan fought first.
Okay,
and then then he's done him before.
All right,
Incursors.
Fair enough. Okay, I take that back about what I said about the ordering being correct. I feel like you go with the Incursors first, to be honest, because they're the only ones that are going to lose attacks to an interrupt. But you know what? You've killed quite a few already, so maybe you can force that morale, and it's not a massive deal.
Oh, there we go.
There it is.
So the Incursors killed 4. So it feels like the interrupt into 2 was at least the right decision, because it stopped them getting everything, and then none of them reanimated either, which is a bit of a shame. But we've got 5 left in the unit with 1 more Leviathan Dread to go. Looking pretty ropey for that Necron Warrior unit, ultimately. The Lich Guard staying alive, that's going to be pretty key. And also So the Redemptor now, here we go, Tom. So the Redemptor in the middle.
I mean, you can see a scenario here where you've got 2 units that are going to fail morale checks, but you really would rather not fail those morale checks, so you can split those. You've still got 2 CP remaining in the hands of Dave, but you're going to at least lose 1 unit here. Here come Redemptor's attacks.
Unfortunately for the Necrons, these are the two of the major threats that are available, and they're gone. And really, there's no counterplay. There's no backup unit. There's 1 unit of flayed ones off the side of the board. That's what's available to help back up. But the Iron Hands are losing nothing. They've lost nothing so far.
I love how the threats for Necrons are threats not because they kill things, but because they stand in the way quite well. That's basically how the Necron list goes, right?
Yeah.
So we're seeing a similar figure here.
So we've lost 2 Lich Guard, but we have put 1 more back. And very clever reanimation. Let's look at that. The 2 that were taken away, the 2 that were next to the Leviathan Dreadnought. And then the one that was reanimated was put back next to the Redemptor, and effectively meant that the Leviathan Dreadnought wasn't able to pile and attack them, and instead had to go after the Technomancer. So excellent use of that reanimation protocol there. I really do feel like top end, like really, really big plays in tournaments, you're going to see some games, maybe even tournaments, taken out from some quality reanimation decisions.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do with it. I mean, these are still all good reanimations, but there's still more you can do with it, as we were talking about the Necron Warriors earlier, right? It's still good, but then you can do some beautiful, perfect reanimations. Now, that Technomancer has gone down. All those Lich Guards have been confirmed. Take that pile of crap off my board, sir. You are littering the playing space.
Well, that's also the Warlord. Not that means anything, but
it is.
But that was also the only opportunity for him potentially bringing back that unit of Lich Guard as well. Also, that Warlord was making units around him objective secured. So, oh no, sorry, that's not. He wasn't doing that.
What ends up happening
here? He was re-rolling saves.
Is now you've got 2 units of 2 Lich Guard models on this objective and 2 Dreadnoughts, which means no one holds that objective. Not that it matters, because there's other ones being held by Necrons.
Yeah, the Necrons are in a tough spot here, aren't they? Realistically,
they're kind of
these five warriors need to try and survive. They're still going to hold more next turn. They're going to hold more. But the Catacomb Command Board has killed 2 more incursors, so he is going to take this objective probably next turn, firing into combat, shooting into combat again. He's going to take this objective, but those 6 dreadnoughts still just running rampant.
And now there's no way to deal with them either, because he's lost the memories.
I mean, it's arguable that there was no way to deal with them top of turn 1.
Oh yeah, some stuff. It just wasn't very useful. It just was a thing. So you had those flat damage 6s. You had a couple of ways to get some frigate downs, and a couple of ways to get while we stand, while we fight. I have to say, I think the surround them is gone now. I don't think there's going to be a way realistically to get that surround them. Just because next turn, when we go into the Necron turn, the Catacomb Command Barge will not be holding the objective in the bottom left, which means now you've got some breathing space for the Space Marines to come around, remove this Catacomb Command Barge, and then just say you have got nothing that will ever take around them. Then bring it down. It's a realistically a way that any of these dreadnoughts are going to die at this point. Maybe for a weight of fire, you get 1. The Silent King's still got his own gun, which can maybe do some damage, but I think maximum number of points you're going to get over there is 3. And then for the Necron, the
only dreadnought that's even close to wounded is Leviathan. 7 out of 14. The other Leviathan unwounded. Redemptors, 2 of them completely unwounded, and 1 of them has taken 1 wound. It's horrific looking at this on the tabletop. And it's just not going to do much at all. Silent King, I really do feel, I understand his reticence to put the Silent King in earlier, but I feel like turn 1, I'd have, turn 2 when he went with everything, I'd have pushed up quite heavily with the Silent King as well. I mean, he did try to charge into those incursors in the centre, but ultimately, and then that would have been quite a nice move as well, because if he'd have pulled him into the centre here, the Silent King, from where he is now, he could have potentially piled round this piece of line of sight blocking terrain, meaning just these Leviathans versus the Silent King, dropping the Redemptors out, so they would have hit that line of sight blocking terrain, so they wouldn't have been available to do any damage. So that would have been a great little charge. It's just a shame he didn't get that off ultimately.
Yeah. So I'm going to make some predictions, Rob, on the secondary score. I am going to predict that the Necron secondaries are going to be 12-0-0, and the Marine secondaries are going to be 10-15-14.
Okay. So do you want to call which of the names of them?
So that's going to be...
Wait, but hold on, Tom. Before we hear about it, Lich Guard. So into the morale phase for the... just at the end of this turn, which is Space Marine's turn 3, and the Lich Guard have pressed their morale. And the Necron Warriors, there's currently one left. I don't think he's going to... Oh, he's gone.
What's he doing?
What is happening with it? What's happening with the one warrior? That's what
I feel like there's no cursor on there anyway, so he's not going to be able to control that objective. But there is going to be.
It's true.
It's true.
He's run away as well. That's pretty rough. That's pretty rough.
So now the ability to get 8 points on us around them is pretty much gone. The 4 is still just about there, but not realistically. On the secondaries, I feel like maybe Callum drops 1, but that's about it. But I feel like he's okay now because I feel like realistic ability to hold 2 objectives is pretty strong here. Although if this Catacomb Command Barge is able to kill these 2 incursors, the Marines will only be holding 1 objective, which means that they then need to hold more objectives than the Necrons at some point later on in the game, which would have to be in turn 5, which I think is a realistic possibility now. So I feel like you can get the max there. On the secondaries, I think that the Marines are going to get 10 points for engaging all fronts. We're going to see 15 points for while we stand, while we fight, and we're going to see 14 points for raise the banners. And then the Necrons are going to get 12 points for Purge of Vermin and then nothing for the other 2, which means we'll probably see a victory of 27 points for the Marines, but I could be wrong because there's a lot of spinning plates there. But that would mean, realistically, we're going to see a 15-5 victory to the Space Marines, I think, in terms of WTC scoring.
Yeah. I think it's going to be very, very hard for the Necrons to pull anything back here. However, they have scored. They should have scored. I think they scored the 15 this turn. No. Have they? Yes, they have. They scored 15 for the primary at the start of this turn.
I mean, talking for earlier in the game, we're saying maybe it's going to be an 18-2, 19-1 to the Space Marines. So the Necrons have got more points than we predicted them for, which is vastly important. But when you're talking about team events, one of these things that's very important is being able to communicate to your coach how many points you realistically you think you're going to be able to bring home mid-game, and that may have changed from your pre-game or early game predictions, right?
Hold on, hold on. Let me just double check. Space Marine turn, is that correct?
No, it should be Necron turn.
So Necron's turn. Okay, I was just making sure he didn't just fly through his turn. Okay, so we are into the Necron. So just let everyone know what's going on. We're into Necron's turn 3. They went second as the game progressed. Effectively, the turn 1, the Marines did very little. They just moved up a little bit with the Dreadnoughts. You started up with 3 Redemptors castled here, the 2 Leviathans you can see on the side, and the other one over there with some Incursors holding the backfield, and the midfield is basically what we saw at turn 1. We saw the Redemptors move up a little bit, but it was the Leviathans that kind of pushed to the right and the left. The Necrons retaliated by engaging with some Cursors, and we had arguably the best fight ever, which was some Scarabs versus Incursors onto this objective you can see on the right.
Even if it was giga scuffed, but we loved it.
Yeah, it was real fun. And then, quite excitingly, moving into turn 2 is really where we started to see everything happen. We saw the Redemptors pop their little heads out and start taking pot shots, killing off a unit of Immortals at the bottom, and then we also saw these Scarabs taken off this objective as well. The Catcoon Command Barge, by the way, was making big plays, and he's ended up at the back right-hand side there. However, it was all about Necron's turn 2, which was the last turn that we just saw. We saw the Immortals move from where they were hidden. Praetorians move from where they were hidden, here at the back left. Then they charged over and got into this unit of Incursors and wiped them out. And then we saw a unit of Necron Warriors land, shoot into this Leviathan, charge in, and lock him up in combat. We also saw some Lich Guard who were previously here, Veil of Darkness over here, and then they charged into a Redemptor Dreadnought. Unfortunately, Marines, when they retaliated, they took out all but 2 of those Lich Guard who were forced back onto this objective, surrounded by a Redemptor and a Leviathan. All of the warriors died to Incursors and to Leviathan Dreadnoughts, and the Incursors and the Leviathan took out half of the Praetorian unit as well. So you ended up with... and just for fun, so the Redemptors at the back took all of the Menrirs out for the Silent King, and the Silent King has now got 2 wounds on him. So basically, the Necrons lost most of their forces last turn, and it's a real big question as to what Dave, who is running these Necrons, is going to be able to do this turn. Tom, what do you think?
I mean, he had to go for it, let's be honest. We were talking earlier again about how he had to push all this stuff and then see if he could try and break that and lock down all of his Leviathans. He saw an opportunity for it. There was a bit of a gap back here, and then he went for it, and then it just didn't turn out like as he would hoped. All the Lich Guard going down, all the Warriors going down, and now these Praetorians just stood with 5 guys left with the. I mean, I can't say that.
How do you feel? How do you feel with? So he decided to split his forces, right? So he decided to bring his Lich Guard over here, and then he decided to bring his Praetorians here. How do you feel if he'd have tried to overload the threats? Because he's got this great piece of line of sight blocking terrain here. So he brought his Praetorians down where he brought them, and then he could have brought his Lich Guard over here, or potentially at the back here where he brought his Warriors. Could have brought his Warriors here as well, and then he could have just overloaded into this centre. Then he maybe wouldn't have taken quite so much damage as we discussed, because really, I think the Catacomb play of the day, I'm going to say play of the day, has got to be this Catacomb Command Barge, who's just been whomping up this line. He started at the back here, moved into the centre, and then he just run around the back. He's probably going to take out this Incursor unit. So I feel like the Catacomb Command Barge was a play, and I loved it. But I do wonder if he shouldn't have even maybe used the Silent King as bait. Moved him in the centre, say, look, here I am. I'm going to threaten. Put all of his big units over here on the far left. Push that flank, yeah, and then just let maybe even the king die, because he's not losing these 2 back objectives.
Definitely could have pushed that up. Yeah, 100%. I mean, he might now explode all of the other stuff, but as I say, the Praetorians are moving up. Now, you talk about threat overload, and I agree, you should have done that. But you can still threat overload over a wide plane. And you say play of the day of the Catacomb Command Barge. I think the play is good, but I think the thing doing it is wrong. So earlier we were talking about how the Catacomb Command Barge was on the far side of the board on the edge, and then the Lich Guard dropped down and then really went for it with the Redemptors and tagging up that kind of stuff, right? Well, what if you'd have the Catacomb Command Barge in the centre, pushing on this objective here with its -1 damage, forcing you to put a bunch of shooting into it, and then the Lich Guard came round, murdered all these Incursors, locked down this objective for the purposes of surround them, and then also just sat in that ruin and said, you can't touch me. This is my building now. You are not coming anywhere near me, and I'm going to take these surround them points. Now you've got to deal with all these Lich Guard over on this side, which are very difficult to deal with inside that ruin. You've got to deal with all these warriors on the other side, and you've got these Redemptors just sat in the middle going, I don't know where to go. And once you've committed, you've got 2 turns to do it, because you've got to get all the way around and get these Lich Guard. It's so hard to get at them when they're inside that kind of building. I feel like if this Lich Guard were in the place where the Catacomb Command Barge is right now, and the Catacomb Command Barge was a thing that was in the center taking all the hits, then maybe it would have been a lot harder for Callum to turn around and just push everything off.
Yeah, there's lots of plays. That's what I love so much about doing coverage, looking at these matches and watching these armies play. I also got to say, love Dave's list. Dave's list really, really showcasing like how good that the -1 damage has been okay. It hasn't really been hit with loads of stuff for that to be a thing, but it effectively neutered and will be neutering that unit of Praetorians when they do finally get in. Looking for the long bomb charge. It looks like they've moved up. They've gone for the long bomb charge at the back. The Flayers, who've been off board for a while, finally drop in at the back here. Looking to take out that OBSEC unit and do some... seeing if they can fit right at the back. That's the real question.
Yeah, but yeah, they can fit there, mate. Yeah, that's not even difficult. There's 9 of them, mate. They got that, no problem.
There you go. So they're looking for that and to get in. The loss of the Warlord, that's important. These 2 Lich Guard, are they going to stay in the fight? I mean, it feels like they shouldn't, because they're doing nothing in that, and they're just going to die in this turn. The Catacomb Command Barge will take that back objective at least. So Lich Guard should fall off. They're not going to do anything in that situation, which is a shame. Those Scarabs, they're there, holding the objective, and as you can see, the Overlord's moved up as well to grab. So again, these 2 little clutch units, really important actually in list design. Actually, Tom, one of the things I think I'm currently missing in my list design is, because I'm all about, I want every unit, I want all the toys, yeah, and none of the boys. But really, these crypto thralls, these 2-man units, these little units of 5-man immortals that we've seen, just doing the Lord's work in holding objectives. They've been the linchpin for scoring objectives, really, for Dave this turn.
Yeah, I mean, but Overlord is now doing something, which I'm excited to see, because it hasn't done anything the entire game now. But if we need, hold up, we need to see these Lishkar move out of combat, man. Like, I'm really hoping it's still the Necron movement for it. Never mind. So, the issue I have with these Lishguard here is because they're in combat, they're now going to get punched to death by this Redemptor, right?
Yeah.
And if you lose one of them, that means the Marines are then going to be able to hold this third objective. So even if you are able to take this objective on the back right-hand side off of the Marines, they're still going to get 10 points because they're holding 2 objectives. Or let's say you take the Catacomb Command Barge and they take the other side off. Still 2 points. So now you need the Flayed Ones and the Catacomb Command Barge to kill everything. Otherwise, the Marine player is going to be able to max out those primaries without even breaking a sweat.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. It's interesting to see like how little board control really the Marine players have. Early on with the Incursus, he obviously had the board presence to make sure deep strikes weren't happening. But really, since turn 2, just like the Necrons have just been unopposed in just dropping stuff on a predominantly smaller board than the game has been traditionally. But it's because it's just such an elite army. After all, when all's said and done, so far Marines have lost only so far 2 units of Incursors. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I did want to see realistically the Incursors moving around in turn 2 and just like fanning off again and then forcing the Necrons to come in, clear the Incursors, and then you just hit them with the Leviathans. Instead, what's happened is the Incursors stayed where they were and then the Leviathans got hit. But then it didn't really matter, you killed them all anyway. I think the thing that I would like to see more is people falling out of combat just to avoid getting hit in the assault phase at once. Just to conserve
I'm not 100% certain why that's going on, but and we're talking specifically here about this unit of Lich Guard who are just in the fight for no reason. It would seem.
Hey, they like to swing their swords, man.
But they're movement 5, right? It could be that no, they can get out of engagement range. I'm almost
they can. You can't intervene with these Redemptors. Like you just get out of 1 inch. Just stand on the other side of the objective.
That would be the right call, I think. It was really fun that we didn't see this unit of Incursors step out either. And just be like, nope, I'm not going to be a part of this.
Rather than using them to screen, you used them as countercharge, and then you used your countercharge to screen. I was like, yes, I appreciate the ingenuity there.
Yeah, I want to see those still in that fight. But it is looking like it's going to be a very clear and concise win for the Marines. I really don't see how the Necrons can pull anything back now. Not to disregard Dave in any way, because seems like a legend.
Okay, so while we're on that, it looks like the Flayed Ones have failed the... or is it the shooting phase? If it's the shooting phase, the Voltaic Staff and Shooting just killed both the Incursors on the left-hand side, which means that the Catacomb Command Barge is now going to hold that objective in the bottom left, which is very, very important for your surround them objective. So, but it does mean that Catacomb Command Barge has to live an entire turn, which is possible. The problem is that Catacomb Command Barge can neither move nor pile in now, because it just killed both those Marines with shooting. So those Dreadnoughts can punch these Lich Guard in the face, then wheel around, shoot everything they have into that Catacomb Command Barge. And realistically, they should be able to take it down, even through that Quantum Shielding and that -1 damage. But we'll have to see. Now it's all on those Flayed Ones. If the Flayed Ones can make that charge and kill off these Incursors, then it looks like the Necrons will be able to at least deny 5 points from Callum, and Callum would then have to forcely shoot later on.
Yeah, I'm just going to make sure that none of those Dreadnoughts are characters. I seem to remember from the... Oh, okay. Nope. All right, good.
Yeah,
I was like, did I see on the army list? But no, the answer is no. So there we go. No. The answer giveth. Oh, one of the Leviathans is. I thought so. Is it the Leviathan that is involved with the Lich Guard?
It's the 7 wound one.
Oh, is it?
So I've just hovered over it, and one of them says Character Leviathan Dreadnought on its dome.
Oh, there we go. So there is one. There he is. Okay,
nobody's going to heroically intervene on anything at all, apart from maybe these Praetorians, which are unlikely to fail the charge regardless.
Yeah, they're getting in, and those Flayed Ones are getting in. But all this is smoke now. Right, this is nothing but the motions, right? Or am I wrong?
Yeah, and well, it is still about the number of points you gain on the WTC points differential score, right? So if you're able to stop Callum from getting 5 points on primary, if he's unable to recoup those later on, that means it's going to be a 22-point victory rather than a 27, which means it's now going to be a 14-6 rather than a 15-5, right? So everything you do still has a point because it does affect your tournament score. Mm-hmm. But realistically, if you're looking to outright win the game, I think it's or get a big chunky score, then I think that's gone out the window long ago. I think it went out the window in the matchup, to be fair.
So by a big chunky score, you mean a high score for one player and a low score for another player?
Yes, specifically what I mean. Yeah. Okay. So I mean a big points differential win.
Yes, effectively.
For
So
the
again,
Necrons,
if you guys have just joined us or you're sticking around for a while, effectively what Tom's talking about is you score based on the points differential. So yes, there's just the win, and the win is definitely going to the Marines. But the points differential difference just dictates under WTC format how much of a win that is. So whether or not it's a 20-0 or an 18-2 or whatever it is, the closer the points different. The closer the points differential, the more it is a 10-10, and then the farther it is, it goes to a 20-0. So that's effectively the way to think of it.
So
go on.
No, I was going to say, if the points are within 5 points at the end of the game, as in the VPs are within 5 points, it's a 10-10. If the points are within 6 to 10 points, it's an 11-9 to whoever got the most points. If it's between 11 and 15, it's a 12-8, and so on and so forth. Right. So the bigger your win, the bigger your tournament score.
Absolutely. And now we've just been into the charge phase. As you can see, the flares are in, and they have gone into that unit of incursors, looking to eat that meat up. Scary that Leviathan Dreadnought. I don't think it can heroically intervene. I don't think it's got the range. The Silent King, though, he decided to charge, and like a Dust Bowl plane, Tom, like a vacuum chamber of silence, the man did nothing. He again failed a charge. That's his second failed charge, which, when you're spending 450 points on a model, he also, don't forget, the hilarious shooting phase turn 1. We saw the Menrir shoot. It hit, even though smoke launchers were popped on the Leviathan, this one here. It hit, and it used a stratagem to auto-wound. Wounded the Leviathan, and then the Leviathan rolled its invuln, failed it, re-rolled it with a stratagem, with the CP reroll, and passed it. So much CP spent by this, by the Silent King, and he's done almost nothing. He definitely hasn't killed anything this game.
All right. You know what I've decided, Rob? I've decided that the Silent King is a Toyota Prius.
Oh yeah, how come?
Right. So, firstly, it's very conscious about the environment. With his big vehicle-killing guns, he's taking vehicles off the road. And also, he is very quiet as he glides through the roads. And also, with that big headdress, he's probably Japanese.
More than likely. More than likely. Well, we'll wait to see. I think we should wait to see what happens at the end of this turn. Because I think after this, it's nothing but the.
Start talking it through at that point, yeah.
Yeah. It won't be much to say. It's
unless this Leviathan gets murdered. Actually, it's on 3 wounds.
Is he? Oh, because
that's an 8-point swing.
Whoa. Okay. Leviathan going down, and it's an 8-point swing because of bringing him down, right?
So you get 3 points to bring it down, but you also deny Callum 5 points for while we stand while we fight.
Okay, and just to clarify, while we stand while we fight is.
You get 5 points for every one of your 3 most expensive models that's alive at the end of a game.
Which will be those Leviathan Dreadnoughts.
Yeah, and if one Leviathan is dead, it is not alive at the end of the game.
Yeah, so there we go. So, so it's whether or not, do you think... So, look, the Lord's gone in as well. The Overlord is...
Flake ones are going to kick these incursors off and knock Callum down to 5 primary points in the next turn, which is it's a big deal, that one as well. Plus, it gives you more options for potentially scoring some surroundings, but realistically, I don't think that's likely unless the Leviathan Dreadnought dies as well, in which case maybe you can do it. We'll have to see.
I don't think there'll be anything left other than Silent King, those 2 units holding the back objectives at least at the end of the Marines' next turn, which is turn 4. But it's whether or not you can grab those primary points. Actually, that's actually a thing. Whether or not you can grab those primary points, which is actually really exciting. That small pacey scoring
little
system.
Victories.
Yeah. Actually, it does add up. So it's going to get closer and closer.
That's a lot of ones. That was a lot of ones. So we've got 15 hits coming out of the flayed ones. They're going to be mauling those incursors, trying to hit that objective off. We've got a big bag of flaming dice going on above there, and they have done 11 wounds plus some additional
incursors.
Yeah. Of course, mandatory double 1 appearing at the top of the table there, just because, of course, he has to. But that should be a decent chunk of wounds being placed on those incursors. Not entirely sure what he's trying to indicate by circling those 6s, but here we are. Looks like they are mortal wounds.
These are going into the flayed one. The flayed one's going into the incursors right now.
I'm just trying to work what on earth he's rolling. Gonna be honest.
So 1.5 are dead. 1.5 are dead right now.
Oh, well, that did nothing. That's very unfortunate. So that means that objective is not going to be kicked off. It means that the incursors are going to hold it, and therefore the Marines are still going to get their 10 primary victory points, which they need to max it.
Yeah. Also, big shout out to Dude Our Day in the chat. Number one for donating a tenner to the show earlier. Big love. But also for suggesting that if the Leviathan does blow up, it exploding and killing everything around it would be hilarious. So a big explode on the Leviathan could be super fun as well. Let's see it. I think the Praetorians are attacking next. I think that's the next command. Don't forget, in the shooting phase, the Catcoon command barge did take out those intercessors. These incursors at the back. So even more, he's done his job at least this game. That's what he's been there for. But the Marines lost almost nothing. It's pretty shocking, actually. It's just been like running up against a brick wall and just hitting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's what happens when you add -1 damage onto everything under the sun. Yeah. It's like, and a 6+ DPR and a 5+ invulnerable save, and then you're just like, oh, okay, then. That's fine.
Yeah, they're very survivable, which is
175 points, by the way. Nice work.
But they're not toughness 5. That's the thing to remember. So we are in combat, right? Have we got the Praetorians attacking into the Leviathan?
It looks like that's what's going on. It does look like we're going to do the I don't know what ordering this is. It looks like the Space Marines have spent 2 CP to interrupt with a Redemptor to punch some Lich Guard for some reason.
Well, hold on. Let me tell you what's happened here, Tom. Both the Overlord and the Praetorians have gone into the Leviathan Dreadnought. They managed to do a wound each, taking him down to 1 wound.
All right, well, that's it then.
Out of 14. 1 wound out of 14, so weren't able to kill him, which, as Tom said, would have been, again, another major point swing.
That's okay. I am perfectly ready to watch these. Hold up. Why not just save the 2 CP? Run the Leviathan out over the top of these Praetorians with the 2 CP. Run the Master of the Forge over and repeatedly heal the Leviathan. Instead, we've used 2 CP to punch Lich Guard, but are never going to touch you anyway.
So let me just see how many CP are left. So
there are
2 CP left currently, apparently, for player B, and player B is Necron. So there might be the ability for the Necron Praetorians to fight again, and if the Praetorians can fight again, then they could potentially get that point swing still in effect. Unsurprisingly, the Lich Guard lost their fight versus the Redemptor and the Leviathan, and they are gone off that objective. And we find out from our table boss if he has elected to use the stratagem to fight again. I'm not sure if that's the case right now. We'll wait because it might be a different combat. Marines have got to attack back into the flayed ones, murdering these guys. Tom, big fan of the flayed ones, or you're not too stressed?
I was testing them in 2018, and I have hated them since.
Okay, well that seems super okay.
I mean, they're all right. They end up all over the place. They're kind of like Necron warriors, but without the guns, and that's about it, really.
So also, you know the Praetorians that we were talking about, Tom?
Yes.
Yes. So in combat, strength AP -3, damage 2. So again, that -1 damage on those dreadnoughts, massive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when you've only got 1 wound left, it doesn't matter too much. But if you didn't have that -1, then he'd be dead right now, wouldn't he? He's actually turned around and whacked a couple of Praetorians. One of them has come back with the reanimation protocol. So now you've got 3 Praetorians left. If you want to try and do that double fight, you can go for it, but you only took 1 wound off last time, and you had 2 more models fighting on that occasion. So, I mean, we'll have to see, I guess. Maybe it's worth a risk. That's a big swing if you get it. Big swing.
Make sure he's got the CP available. I'm not 100% certain they've been keeping track on those little trackers. I've been looking, but not really. At one point there were 9, and then all of a sudden there was 0 at one point. I was like, okay. But I'm sure they have been keeping tracking somehow. And we are into the fighting from the... from the Marines into the flayed ones. We've lost a couple now of flayed ones. Just waiting to see if the Leviathan, who has already struck into the Praetorians, if he gets fought again by the Praetorians, or if they don't have the CP to do it, ultimately.
Well, the CP have now gone missing off the tracker, so it looks like something's going on over here. It looks like that looks like far too many attacks.
Flayed ones are fighting twice.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Does it? Well, how come that makes more sense?
Because if you can kick the incursors off that objective, what you're able to then do is you are basically denying 5 points again, regardless, from the Marines, just by doing that, because you're taking 5 points off the primary. They can get them back by forcing him at center, but at the same time, it gives you another option for those surround them points later on in the game if you're really looking for it.
And maybe the ability to lock. They've killed him. And maybe the ability to lock that Leviathan Dreadnought in. I don't think so. I think he's still going to be able to step out, and they're going to be able to hose everything down. in the shooting phase there, but it has, like you said, stopped them scoring an additional 5 VP there, which has been pretty useful. That'll be in the next turn, so that means the Marines turn 4 stopped them scoring that 5 VP. Oh, okay, we're going into turn 4 now. So just to double check, make sure I've got all the points updated as is.
So random's being counted, even though it doesn't get scored until the players who has its command phase. So I'd take that off. Thank you very much. We're then going to put 5 points on for the Marines, I believe, because you've only got the one objective being held there. Although that is the one in the center, surprisingly enough.
Yes, so I'm just going to update the scores for everyone on the overlay. So just give me a second, gentlemen, if you don't mind.
There we go. So I would assume this Leviathan Dreadnought on the left-hand side is going to push forward into the Necron Hearth, and the only reason I would assume that's going to happen is just so that you can deny that Purge of Vermin 2 points. So basically, the only Purge of Vermin points left for Dave would be in his bottom left corner where the Immortals are. You'd get that twice, and that would be about it. It would also give you some line of sight onto that Catacomb Command Barge while still staying within range as well. And then also it gives the Marines the option to pick up those engaged no fronts points as well, of which I think they'll pick up a 2 and then they'll pick up a 3. Although the 3 is debatable. You may just end up with a 2 on that one. So we are probably going to see these Leviathans over here clear out the flayed ones and the Praetorians. I would assume with probably a little bit of help from the Redemptor Dreadnoughts as well. It shouldn't be too much of an issue. And then it's a case of trying to protect this character Leviathan, because you've still got those Scarabs which can come over and bomb it, which could cause some massive issues for it later down the line as well.
I expect to see nothing left on the board, basically, apart from the Catacomb Command Barge and then these 2 units here at the back.
I think you might see the Scarabs, but we'll have to see. It depends on if all this stuff dies to just Redemptors or not. So all the stuff in the bottom right corner with the flayed ones, if that all dies to Redemptors, then you may see the Leviathan shoot at these Scarabs, but otherwise I feel like you might not.
I mean, the Scarabs potentially run in. Oh, there's no CP. Oh, there'll be a CP next turn. Run in, blow themselves up into that Redemptor and blow it up for a 5-point spin. Could be fun. But yeah, I imagine everything you're about to see. That one Leviathan is going to go tank everything now. He's going to unload. They're going to both shoot into everything that they can see. Go lock some stuff. The Redemptor coming over as well, potentially to fire some shots into everything that they can see here. Everyone happy to just unload at this point. This is turn 4 for Marines. So turn 4, looking to generate those points. Current score, though, is 31 points to the Iron Hands. 41 points. The Iron
51
Hands.
points.
Well, that's with the 10 points for painted. So
of course. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
Yes. It's okay. Yeah. So 41 points for Marines. Obviously, they've just scored 5 points this turn for the primary, and then for the Necrons, they're at 33 points. I think I've got that right. They're 33 points. They're still to score 10 points next turn. At the end of turn 4, they'll score 10 for the primary as well. So it's closer than you might think.
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing here is the Redemptor with 10 wounds is now moving across. It's going to be in line of sight of that Catacomb Command Barge, so you're going to have one Leviathan, one Redemptor shooting at that. The other 2 Redemptors should be able to see both the Silent King and then the big brick of flayed ones, Praetorians, and the Overlord on my right-hand side as well. The Leviathan with 1 wound has piled back out to where the Leviathan with 14 wounds was. Then you're moving across with the 14 wound 1 just to be able to make sure that you can keep that safe. If you can now blast away those Scarabs and then everything else on this side, you should be able to keep that 1 wound Leviathan alive, which is a massive deal because it then saves you those 3 points for the bring it down and those 5 points for the while we stand, while we fight.
Yeah. There's it's just coming into the dying embers of this game now. Has everyone enjoyed it? Twitch chat, what are you thinking? Tom, you enjoyed yourself?
Oh yeah, but I mean, it was good to see it actually play out, and then even like with the slight mistake of, I think, getting caught with a Leviathan, it actually didn't even matter because you just turn around and hose them anyway, because Dreadnoughts are actually insanely strong. To be fair, I think Dreadnoughts have been waiting on it for a while. I've never really seen Dreadnoughts actually be particularly good. So to see them come out, apart from with the example of Grey Knight Dreadnoughts all the way back in 5th edition, I haven't really seen Dreadnoughts be a stable and competitive list. So I think now it's nice to see him on the board, even if it's hideous and I hate it.
And I hate it. Okay. I like these Tempmarine models, though. I just want you to know that the actual Tempmarine models are gorgeous.
Fine. Yeah. Oh, dear me.
I wanted the Scarabs to run in and blow up the Leviathan last turn, but other than that, it was cool. Thanks, dude, our day. Zip Zap Wrap, happy not to see a dice tray in the middle of the board. That's good. Frothy Cat, interesting game. Sad to see the Silent King didn't get to contribute much. I think this is just a sad outing for him. But hopefully we'll get to bring you, there's a couple of months left of probably us doing some maybe TTS coverage of 40k and Age of Sigmar. And then the arena up and running here live, we should start to be able to bring you some tabletop events with commentary as well. So very much looking forward to that over the next, the next 6 months should see some big fun events happening and also lead up to some major 40k international events if and when the world's able to kick COVID's ass. So we could be walking all the way to the WTC, which would be great fun. Tom's playing in it. Me and Nick will be commentating it. It's going to be really fun. Nick's been our table boss today, so he's been quiet, giving us all the info, but he's been a babe for doing so. So next time I volunteer as tribute for that. Thanks to Nick for being a little ledge. I wonder what he's thought of the game so far. He's a big Necron fan. Maybe Nick, I think we're okay right now to know what's going on. You could drop in, if you want to just pop in on, turn your Skype on. You can tell us what you think of the game so far. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Just give him a minute. He might not be prepped for that. Just threw him in the deep end.
Yeah, you just lobbed him in there, didn't you? That's fine. He'll fix it. Yeah. That was rough, but that's okay.
I'm back.
Hey, Nick, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you. It's been an interesting game. I think if I was sort of thinking, with the Silent King, he's done very little in the game. I think he should have done a similar thing to the command barge, how it went down the right hand flank, 'cause it can fly. It's quite fast. It's not as fast as the command barge, but I think I'd shove that on the left-hand side, so he's like a double threat. But maybe he wanted it in the middle as a counter threat to Callum putting stuff in the middle and those central objectives. But that'd be one thing I'd be reflecting on.
Yeah, agreed.
I don't understand. A question I have is I don't understand why anything was in the middle. It's just two fire lanes, right? It's the left and the right. There's literally everything goes off here and here. I don't know why anything was in the middle.
I mean, even then, though, it doesn't really matter too much because we're always going to be shooting something, right, with your multiple threat overload. If you push the Silent King forwards in like turn 1 or 2, it forces your opponent to deal with it, right? Which then means that they can't shoot those Necron Warriors that you just dropped down on the side. They can't shoot the Lich Guard that you've dropped down on the other one. If in that turn the Silent King was really barreling down the center, then maybe you're going to cause some people some issues.
Mm-hmm. All right, yeah.
He's definitely underutilized that bully piece, hasn't he?
Mm-hmm. It's 450 points, doing almost nothing.
I mean, maybe we wouldn't be saying this if he'd got that charge on those incursors in, what was that, turn 2? Because then he'd already be in the middle of the table, and then maybe now in this turn he'd be going in and whomping a couple of Leviathans or a couple of Redemptors or something like that. So that's an option.
Yeah, that's true.
Maybe he was just a little bit unlucky on that charge. I can't remember what it was. I think it was like a 9, so it wasn't like a super reliable charge, but maybe things would have been different in that case.
But even
I think he's also not.
Go on. Sorry.
There's also the Eternity Orb, which he may or may not get a chance to use, which he hasn't utilised on the. I think it's on the Lord, the Overlord, who's nearby the Praetorians. I think there was a chance to use that at some point, which he missed out on. So maybe a little bit of a micro mistake, which he could have used on those Praetorians this turn maybe.
Ultimately, he's also up against what is a truly horrific combination of things. Toughness 7 chassis, 5 up invulnerable, 6 up DPR, reducing damage 1, and healing phenomenal amounts into these units as well. So it's just these are effectively the toughest of the tough that he's up against, and in quantities as well. And he really didn't start off with many tools to necessarily deal with them in a single shot. That healing is massive as well, right? The healing 3, and potentially healing 2 units up to 3, or 3 units up to 3. Sorry, just really does show that you can't even attrition them. It's okay, I'll get down to them by turn 3. It's no, you slowly are chipping away, and they're coming back up. And if the positioning changes and you can't keep that direct firefight going, you're just in real trouble. So yeah,
I feel like his army was built to. It's an army bred for one purpose: to destroy the world of Primaris Marines.
Ah, yes.
But these are Redemptor Dreadnoughts rather than, because he's absolutely annihilated all the incursors that he's touched, hasn't he?
Yeah, that's true.
He's deleted them, but he can't touch the Dreadnoughts. So maybe Novak, I think he would have fared better had he gone for the Custom Dynasty or Nihilic, where he had objective secured, so he didn't need to rely on necessarily killing stuff off objectives. He can just be there fast and be objective secure to score those objectives and deny his opponent objectives.
I feel like the issue there is standing there though, because as we were saying earlier, the issue is the Marines have a lot of counter charge, and then you can just handshake the even if you handshake the primary, it's 45-45. Do you win on secondaries? Now I don't think that you do, because a lot of the Marine secondaries are just based around existing, whereas these Necron ones, you really had to go and get them.
Yeah, I mean that's the real hard like meat of the situation. Is you're right, like the Necron the secondaries for the Marines are just being there basically, and I feel like those incursors also gave them such strong early game presence to play the objectives and even play secondaries. Like it was just so viable. We just into the shooting phase, by the way. Clearly we're seeing these flayed ones go down. We've just seen the Praetorians finally go as well here. So there's only 2 flayed ones left and the Overlord as well.
I want to know what happens to the Catacomb Command Barge.
I think he's going to be safe, right? Like
he's
absolutely
got 2 dudes
safe.
who can still shoot at him. He just hasn't, been fired at yet.
Yeah, definitely. And also, look at this push. We're in turn 4. This push by this Leviathan Dreadnought, which turn 5 is going to be able to push into this backfield and then threaten those Crypto Thralls, just meaning that final turn of scoring available to Dave is going to potentially be gone.
Yeah.
Which means he won't score his 40. He'll only end up on 35 because he's scored. Oh no, he scored a 15. So it's fine.
Yes,
He'll
still
be on 40. Yeah,
I mean, the issue would then be, firstly, can the Silent King stand an objective, but also it's preventing him from getting 2 points for Purge of Vermin, and it's also gaining 2 points for engaging all fronts for Callum, so that's 4 points swing just by standing there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's been fun, though. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think it's been a good game.
Yeah, it's been good. Yeah, and I'm glad it kind of worked out like I said it did, because otherwise I'd look like an idiot. So,
well, it's nice.
Did the same thing.
It's nice also having some really good players playing their armies that they clearly know quite well.
Yes, it's nice to have a tournament game on.
Yeah, tournament games all day long. It's absolutely brilliant. I think we'll just wait till the end of this turn because I think there's not going to be much left. Well, there we go. The Overlord has also gone down. So. Just these flayed ones on this part of the board now.
Yeah.
I think Daniel Danuary in the chat has made a good point that I think Bring It Down was possibly a bad choice because of how stupidly resilient these dreadnoughts are and the limited anti-tank that David had. A lot of his punch was in combat and a lot of it, like I said at the start of the game, is damage 2. Reducing that to 1, he's having a real hard time actually killing those dreadnoughts. So it's kind of like... It's one of those situations where you look at your opponent's list and you go, yeah, they've got loads of vehicles. I can get loads of points for killing vehicles. But you kind of ask yourself, am I realistically going to kill those vehicles?
Yeah.
Whereas it's better to have an objective that you're more realistically better to take. Like, I don't know whether he could have taken Scramblers. I think Scramblers would have been a much better one.
I think Scramblers would have been a good one as well. I think
As it is always.
Yeah, as it always is. Engage on the front, as it always is. You really got to argue yourself out of that situation, right? In some situation, but yeah, they're just good.
I feel like David's decision is understandable because with the Silent King, he's used to just killing a vehicle a turn.
Yeah.
And then at that point, if you're killing a vehicle a turn, you're capping it out at 15. But obviously, the dreadnoughts aren't normal vehicles; they are coffins in boxes. So it's box.
Made of absolute units that'll never go down.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, pretty standard. Yeah.
All right, so I think we are. Let me just check. We've also lost. So we lost the flayed ones. We have lost the Overlord. There's just the Scarabs left. The Catacomb Command Barge. The Silent King has taken another 3 wounds since we last left him, so he's now on 11. But the primary for Dave, when he ends up scoring now, he's going to still score 10 points for these back 2 objectives. He absolutely is. But that's it. Like, at this point on, it's just nothing but... I mean, if this Levy Drev gets in, he's in a good spot as well for taking out those Scarabs. Well, actually, is he going to make the charge? No, he's only got... Oh, no, they've swapped places. So, 1's over there, 14's there. So that Levy Dread will be fine going in. So I think we're good to call the game, right?
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well...
Marines got it.
The Marines got it. I'm gonna bring it back to us. Who would have thought? Big thanks to our competitors there, Dave and Callum. Who'd have thought that Marines would have won a game by going first?
Yeah.
Never happens. Never happens.
Never happens.
I feel like going second would have yielded the same result, to be fair.
I think so as well. Do you think it was a mismatch ultimately?
In lists, I feel like it's one of those where the Necrons can do things. It's just a case of it's the Marines to lose, right? As we saw, there were a couple of things where Necrons had a couple of openings, but they weren't quite like absolutely blasted through. But it was an interesting game to see.
Okay, yeah. Nick, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit of a mismatch. I think that a lot of things needed to go right for the Necron player. Maybe he needed first turn to barrel up the board a bit quicker and to get into a hiding position, and choose a different secondary. But yeah, I think it was definitely the Marines' game to lose, like Tom said.
Yeah, I think so as well. But like a fab game, I think a really fab game. I really enjoyed watching some of those elements play. Ultimately it was like it was just a tin can. I would have really liked to have seen some heavy pressure on those dreadnoughts, but there just wasn't anything on the list to do it. And now I'm just thinking about my list, and I'm like,
difficult to get on.
Yeah, I'm just like, does that list work well in a game with Eradicators? Or do the Eradicators not take out enough? I think,
I think they've got enough. I think the Dreadnoughts versus Eradicators, they've got enough. They've got the invuln, they've got the 6-up DPR, and then if they don't manage to be killed, there's the Tech Marines there to fix them up again. So I think it does pretty decently against the Eradicators, I think.
Okay, yeah, interesting.
And it had to get them there as well. Being curses makes it very difficult.
See, it would also be a super fun army to put together. Paint up 6 dreadnoughts, have some incursors and a couple of Tech Marines. I'm in.
Conversions on, yeah, should be good.
Yeah, you what?
Should be good. Get some conversions on. Yeah,
that would be fun. All right, well, listen, everyone, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Nick, thanks so much for table bossing. You did an excellent job.
No problem.
Appreciate that loads. Thank you to our competitors, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to join us for the Stream Street tomorrow, and the rest of everything that we do all the time. It's been a real pleasure. Look after yourselves and have a lovely day. Oh, yeah, any shout-outs? You guys want any shout-outs before you go?
Yeah, I'm going to give a shout-out to Joe.
Okay, nice. All right, shout-out to Joe. Nick?
Shout out to Ed Sheeran, because we're his favourite 40k show, and also Henry Cavill. Apparently, he's a big fan of ours as well.
He is. Won't shut up about it. Loves it. Okay. All right. Right. Big love to you guys in the chat. That's my shout out to the Grot gang. Look after yourselves and fuck you buddies. Have a great day.